Mission 22 is dedicated to unite the country in the war against veteran suicide. Bringing our veterans home is every American's job. Ambassadors are creating impact in their community across the country. Mission 22 has comprehensive treatment programs for post-traumatic stress and traumatic brain injury at no cost to veterans. This is an American issue. No matter where you stand, there's a place for your support. Visit mission22.com to learn more.
Welcome one and all to V8's Online this Sunday evening for the next round of the Majors International Division. Been looking forward to this one. It is the Spa 2.4, so 2 hours and 24 minutes around this amazing Belgian circuit in a bunch of GT3 cars. What more could you ask for? My name is Reese Gardner. Joining me in the commentary box, Cameron Dance and Jay Kennedy. Cam, it's been a while since the last Majors event we covered here at V8's Online, but this is looking like it's going to be a cracker.
Yeah, it is. It's actually been quite some time since the last major event, so good to be back here for Majors tonight for the Spa 2.4 hour, as you said, 2 hours and 24 minutes. So going to be very, very interesting. Field's not overly big, but nevertheless, we should be able to see some interesting racing.
Yeah, we certainly should. Jay, it's looking like some pretty low sunlight conditions out there for the drivers.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it's the best lighting conditions, but what that does do, it drops the track temp down, so it will make the track a little bit easier for drivers. We know that the pit strategy will likely be one full-length stint, two full-length stints with a pit stop for tyres and then a pit stop for a splash of fuel. So conserving the tyres into that final splash and dash stint, it's going to be key, and I think the weather will help that along.
Yep, certainly will. Looks like it may be possible to do a one-stopper in these conditions, but it will be the slowest strategy by far, and I think it would definitely require a bit of fuel saving as well, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's a couple of guys did try the one-stopper. I can't remember if anybody actually did manage to do it completely and have decent pace last week in all the other divisions during the Pacific, Atlantic and European regions, but it's definitely going to be an interesting strategy call if someone does make it, and will be something to keep an eye on.
Yep, certainly will. Also, another thing that we should probably mention is that this has some special sponsorship supporting rosters for this round. We're supporting Mission 22 with this round, which is a veterans mental health support charity, which is a really good cause to get behind.
Yeah, fantastic cause, and it was auctioned off, the sponsorship for the round, and that was the chosen charity and support network to get behind, and very, very good cause, a very, very important cause throughout the world at the moment, and supporting US veterans after coming back from war. It's not an easy thing. We've seen in the past how tough it is for some people, and giving them the support they need is very, very important.
It certainly is. Well, hopefully the drivers out there are going to put on a fantastic show, which I have absolutely no doubt they will. Currently in this practice session leading up to the race, Christopher Norton is topping the timesheets 0.3 ahead of Josh Nowak, but Griffin Gardner and Bram Reniers are not that far behind, only about half a second or so. So there's some gaps up the front of the field for sure, but when the strategy comes into it, it's certainly going to make for an interesting one.
Yeah, absolutely it will. It's very close at the moment. Looking at qualifying, Norton did actually put it on pole with the 2 minute 15.1, whereas Vincent Herbier put it on the second position with a 15.3. So it's fairly close throughout the field in qualifying and in practice at the moment. So we might see a few surprises actually come the end of the race.
One thing with this track as well is we know draft is such a big key to it as well. Getting the run through Eau Rouge Radion down the Kemmel Straight, it's very, very important to make sure you maintain that draft, and that will also help with fuel saving coming into that strategy we're talking about as well.
Yeah, for sure. It's going to be an interesting one to be sure. Looking down the field, I'm noticing John King, our former international region championship leader, currently down in the field somewhat. 2 minutes 17.697 for him. He's sitting in the pits at the moment. Other drivers just out there getting their final installation laps done before the race gets going. I'm interested to see how Jason Martin will go. We first saw him, I believe, at the Charlotte Motor Speedway round of the series in the Gen 6 NASCAR stock cars. And he's in a GT3 car for this one. You know, he's proven himself to be a bit of a versatile one, Mr. Martin, but I think GT3 is a bit of a foreign territory for him.
Well, I know he only brought the track this week, so it is very, very foreign. I think he did race in the sports car race at Circuit of the Americas, but yeah, GT3 racing, not something you see Jason Martin drive. He'll be more comfortable next round when we head to Pocono for the Pocono Indy 400. Turning right is definitely not something Jason does a lot of, but I think he's going a little bit quicker than maybe he was expecting. He might just say that he's no good at turning right because his pace isn't that bad.
Yeah, certainly isn't. He's looking pretty solid, top 10 or thereabouts in terms of pace is Jason Martin. In fact, he just set his fastest lap of the session, 2 minutes 17.484, so could probably be finding himself around with the likes of Jake Fox, Dean Mole, Shane Bowen, and John King. We've got a couple of other international, or should I say European drivers turning up here today. I did hear whispers in the Discord that Tim Claessens would be turning up for this one in the Majors international time slot, but of course we've also got, as you mentioned, Cam Vincent L'Herbier and Bram Reniers in this field tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very mixed sort of field as far as regions go. We've got a couple of Americans in here as well that are doing a bit of field filling, unfortunately, due to the low numbers, but I'm sure they'll be able to put on a good show. And yeah, just talking about draft, as you said earlier, it's going to be something that's going to play quite a role, and although it's going to help you in the fuel side of it, it may actually be detrimental to your tyres, as all that extra heat and air wash is going to make you use your tyres a little bit more than normal.
Yes, indeed. 90 seconds or thereabouts left in this 2-hour warm-up session before the race, and it will be a rolling start here tonight. And we are using the endurance layout of this circuit, Jay, which results in a very long pit transit time. From entry to exit, a pit stop takes you roughly 2 minutes, which is almost a lap's worth of time around here.
Yeah, and that sort of plays into the hands of the guys that can do a good job of fuel saving, because they can make it up. If you have to do 2 pit stops, that's 4 minutes in the lane that you lose. If you can save a bit of fuel and it only costs you, say, a second a lap, you find yourself a bonus 2 minutes, which is very, very hard to find on track. So if you can fuel save enough to do it on one stop, it is a very, very viable strategy, especially considering this pit lane.
Yes, indeed. Also got to watch out for the hairpin turn in the middle of the pit lane as well. It goes through the Grand Prix pits and then a very tight hairpin on the inside of La Source to go through, exiting after the Eau Rouge complex, and there's no runoff there. There's just a couple of walls in the middle of that hairpin turn, so you've really got to be on your marks. You can just hold your foot flat to the floor, and the pit speed limiter will take care of the rest. But if you mistime your steering input, that's going to be some damage.
Yeah, it will be. And although they do have a faster pair, you'd want to be very strategic with when you use that. You probably don't want to use it in the first half of the race. You probably want to be using it in your final pit stop for when you come in for that splash of fuel. So we'll see what happens, and we may possibly see one. I don't think anybody in the other regions hit that pit wall at any point, but this is going to be a bit of a long race, and anything can happen.
Yes, indeed. We got the grid up at the moment. We're in the race session now. Christopher Norton is your pole man, with Vincent L'Herbier starting in second. Griffin Gardner completing the top three. Josh Nowak, our points leader in the international region, starts in fourth place. Joseph Cardamone in fifth. Bram Reniers going in sixth. Jake Fox and Dwayne Burns on row 4. And rounding out the top 10, we've got Andrew Slissans and Shane Bowen.
In 11th position, we have Jason Martin. Alongside him will be John King. And then we've got Dean Mole and Robert Northway on the 7th row. Daniel Stevens and Alex Sheridan on the 8th row. 9th row goes to Daniel Aitchison and James Stacey. And the 10th row rounded out by James Robbie and Adam McLeod.
And then rounding out the field from 21st to 25th, we have Phil Otto, Rory Boyd, Trevor Mack, Brett Torreson, and Lyndon Swabby.
Well, guys, the field is now pulling away behind the safety car, and just before we get started here, one more thing that we have yet to mention on this broadcast is the incident limit. They've come down quite hard on the incident limit here at what is a track notorious for drivers getting an awful lot of off-track incidents, drivers taking every advantage they can and often going off the track to do so in those tarmac runoffs. We got a 35 incident limit for this race, so if you're a little too liberal with your use or abuse of track limits, then it's a disqualification for you. We've already seen that happen in other divisions of this series before this one.
It's very, very easy to get an incident limit or get an incident point at this circuit as well. So running slightly wide, using too much AstroTurf, using the curbs a little bit too liberal, can find yourself getting those points racked up very, very early. So it'll be another strategy game to make sure you can serve them come the end of this race.
Yes, indeed. Christopher Norton coming away from first position, going to take the green flag once they exit La Source, and Norton in his current position is in a has a very good possibility of overtaking Jake Fox for second in the driver's standing. So we'll see how he goes from there. Field just gathering up now, and Norton decides to go a little early, and he's left his compatriots in the dust as they come into Radion Eau Rouge for the first time. See how many get through cleanly. They should. It's a very long race, so there's no point in taking risks at the moment.
No, there isn't, and it looks like everybody's pretty much found the track position that they want. Couple of guys looking to make some positions down the Kemmel Straight at the moment, but for the most part, everybody seems to be single file.
Yes, indeed. Almost got a little bit of side-by-side running. Dwayne Burns was just having a look at what Bram Reniers was doing, but no move made there. Bit of jostling in the mid-pack. Jason Martin under pressure from Robert Northway, who's going to pull out and have a look down into Brazil. Long downhill right-hander as they come into the infield section, and there we go. We got a spinner. That's Bram Reniers. He spun around. Fortunately, it looks like he's managed to actually go off in a safe location, so he'll be able to get going. No harm done there to anyone else, but goodness me, Bram Reniers' race not off to a good start at all. Christopher Norton up the front, though, has managed to gap the others quite nicely.
Yeah, he has actually. He's done very, very well to actually get the jump that he has on the rest of the field. It looks like it's going to be more or less a battle for second at the moment between Nowak and Gardner and Herbier. So we'll see how this battle plays out. And those two behind Herbier, Gardner and Nowak, are going to be in that nice draft. So fuel saving is going to be a plenty for those two cars.
And he is just coming through Stavilo now, a very long way behind Brett Trosen, who is currently the next running car, and the gaps are really spreading out throughout the field now. Jason Martin, sorry Jay, go on.
I was going to say the top 5 have broken away from the rest of the field, and then there's a big cluster of cars from there back. But yeah, you're right, Jason Martin's under pressure. He's putting pressure on John King, and he's had Robert Northway trying to get that move done all throughout that first lap.
That's it. John King actually running a little wide on the exit of La Source, but Martin not able to get the traction required to get that move done. So at the start of lap 2, coming through the Eau Rouge complex once again for the first time, that aero push starts to come into effect. A bit of instability. These GT3 cars, they're not the most aero-dependent cars out there, but you definitely feel it when you're going through those corners behind another car.
Just saw Joseph Cardamone get the move done on Griffin Gardner. But Gardner wants his position back.
Whoa,
almost
look at
contact.
that. And there we go. That's going to be move done once again for Griffin. So Cardamone is going to have to look for another place to attack. That's the thing about this circuit. These turns all flow into each other, and have a look at how much AstroTurf Griffin Gardner was using there, making maximum use of the allowed incident limit.
Be a little bit careful doing that too early in the race though, because they will add up and add up quickly, and before you know it, you've gone from 3 to 15 to 25, and you're only 10 minutes into the race. So need to be very, very careful to conserve those incident points and use them wisely if you do need to use them. But it's obviously better to not use them at all. But if you go too aggressive, yeah, you could find yourself in a lot of trouble early as Jake Fox is around.
Oh yeah, and that's the exit of Stavilo, so not too sure what went on there. It looks like he just lost it on his own coming into the corner.
Yeah, I think a similar situation to what happened earlier, and he's just dropped the rear wheel onto the grass, and that's it. It's gone round on him under brakes.
Very easy to do in that section of the circuit when you're pushing the car to its absolute limits, trying to push the ABS, and now Fox under massive pressure from Adam McLeod. But I'll tell you what, this is not going to bode well for Fox's defense for second in the championship.
Speaking of championship too, Nowak has just gone through into second position, so that will help Nowak's fight to win this championship as he now finds himself in P2. But Norton's just checked out at the front now.
Yeah, he's actually, that's some incredible pace there from Christopher Norton. That's a 2:16.398 for his first lap versus, well, no one else has managed to get into the 2:16s. That's incredible stuff. Seeing a potential move, John King and Jason Martin still battling, and Martin's just blasted by King on the Kemmel straight. There was no defense there at all. Goodness me. King just coming back online, and Robert Northway, I think, was a bit caught out there.
Yeah, it looked like he almost ran into the back of him, just a little bit caught out by King coming back onto the racing line under brakes, but he's very lucky to actually not get passed by Dean Mulder and hold into the position. So some good fighting actually going on in the mid pack at the moment.
Yes, indeed. Some very nice fighting going on. All these cars still in very much their own pack. So King under pressure from Northway, who is trying to gap Dean Moll. There's not much of a gap left from those guys to the likes of Stevens, Sheridan, and Robbie. So this pack from 15th all the way up to 7th place, 8th place it seems.
And
These
Northway,
guys all in close quarters.
Northway's looked the most racy out of this entire pack too. We saw lap 1, he was trying to make a lot of moves very, very quickly on Jason Martin. Now that Martin's gone, he's now trying to make moves on King, and he'll probably isn't too happy with himself being back in the position he's in. We've seen him up a little bit higher throughout this championship in his positions, so this is probably one of the lower starting positions we've seen Northway in throughout this championship.
Yeah, certainly. Maybe GT3 cars just aren't his cup of tea. I mean, oh, goodness me, he's going to try and go for the move at the chicane, but not quite far up enough on King. Yeah, you can see that Northway, he's made up 3 positions on his starting position already. So obviously he didn't put in a lap time that he was too happy with. So single lap pace, not his strength. And in this particular combination, remember the majors, it's a different car and track combo every round. So looks to me like Northway is looking to make good on his race pace more than anything else. See what kind of run he gets up off the top of the hill. Looks to me like it was fairly even with the cars around him. But there's quite a gap from King to Martin, so King doesn't have much of a defense here.
Dean Mole looks like he's got some good pace under that bonnet too. He's looking very, very strong. Just got out of the throttle a little bit early there to save a dash of fuel. Save a tiny bit of fuel now, you might get an extra lap. That'll help you later on in the race. So, already some strategy games starting to be played in this very, very early stage too.
Yeah, for sure. It'll definitely be benefiting the people like Northway, Moles, Stevens, etc. Ad infinitum through to the back of the mid-pack. Those guys will have the benefit of the draft, try and save a little bit of fuel. But tell you what, the people like Christopher Norton and Josh Nowak, as well as Mr. King, they won't have that luxury. So I think especially in Norton's case, it's very much just go for that 1 lap pace, go for as much of a gap as you possibly can, and see if you can fuel save a little towards the end, just building up a bit of a buffer in these opening laps.
Yeah, I think that's probably going to be the idea for most of the guys at the front of the field, where there's quite large gaps. It's just going to be a pure sprint race to try and build the gaps of the cars ahead and behind, or either depending on where you are on the track. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what's going to possibly happen as far as strategy for Nowak being in a little bit more traffic than Norton is, who's out clean air on his own. So could possibly see Nowak jump into the lead later in the race. We could possibly see Norton run away with this. It's going to be something we're going to have to keep an eye on.
Certainly. Another thing we're going to have to keep an eye on is Shane Bowen versus Jason Martin. Tell you what, Jason Martin, I think, is following in the vein of Robert Northway, in that his race pace seems to be much better than what his qualifying pace would tell. He's right on the back of Bowen, challenging for 8th position, and looked awfully close a couple of times in that last half a lap that I could see.
Looks really strong, doesn't he? I think he's probably surprising himself with his pace at the moment. So really positive to see how well he's doing. And apparently P9 has got Jake Fox around. Ready on.
Oh no.
That is massive damage to that car too.
Oh, that's again Jake Fox. Another incident, and this time, goodness me, that is quite the smash that he has had. And once again, he just did it completely on his own. Took a bit too much to the curb at the top of the hill, and the front end of that car is absolutely ruined.
Yeah, that's been a very big hit for him there. It's very easy to do in the Audi, especially with how the car reacts to bumps and curves and that sort of stuff. So it's, to some extent, no surprise that that's actually happened, but unfortunately it has. So he'll get some repairs done and he'll get back out on track, but that's going to affect his race result massively.
And his championship result too.
Lucky for McLeod and Boyd as they come through. They almost ran into a stranded Jake Fox then. Lucky to not make contact with him. So lucky that it was only a solo car accident, because that could have been a lot bigger.
Yeah, it certainly could have. We may have even had to bring out a caution for that, but fortunately everyone else was able to continue. So now it's just up to them to try and continue this race cleanly to the best of their abilities. Jake Fox still at a standstill in the pits, and it looks like he's actually exited that car, so this may be Jake Fox's night over.
Being where he actually crashed, it would be a very long tow. It would be almost a full lap, seeing as he crashed not too far from the pit exit. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's sitting there for quite some time and goes possibly 2 laps down. James
Robbie also around.
Oh, yes indeed, falling down the timesheets. It looks like he's done that at Blanchimont.
Just clipping the grass on the outside and corner entry. So catching drivers out. Good good avoidance from everybody there to make sure there was no
Yeah.
contact. Robbie's done a good job to get out of the way as quick as he could too.
Yeah, that was a very mindful way to handle that spin from Robbie. So he's going to continue on, and we'll see what he can do from there. He hasn't really gained or lost much from where he started as a result of that. So it's a bit of a shame for him. So it's a long race. Once again, we've got about 2 hours and 10 minutes to go. So there's still time to make up some positions and get some points if a driver has a bad opening stint.
Gap at the front is starting to close between Norton and Nowak. We need to keep an eye on that. It was out to 2.8 seconds, now down to 2.3.
Yeah, Nowak's left L'Herbier in the dust, basically. So that's pretty interesting to see. Nowak, I think, in that clear air, has gotten a bit of pace back that he may have been wanting from the start. So Norton versus Nowak. Have a look at their last lap time. Norton a 2:17.2, 2:16.8 from Nowak. So I get the feeling that Norton may have exhausted his fuel and tires for that opening lap, and now he is definitely into fuel save mode, try and make it on one stop. Nowak's just chosen to put the hammer down now as opposed to right at the start.
Yeah, it's interesting how that's started to become an effect, how the whole actually thinking about the long-term effect rather than the short-term effect is actually starting to come into place. So we'll see what happens, but now that
Northway.
That's
Big move.
Goodness me. Yeah, very big move. Big dive up the inside of the chicane there for King, on King rather, and now that's opened him up to an attack from Dean Mole, but it'll be interesting to see what Northway can do from here, because I guess you really got the feeling that he felt a bit held up behind King, and you can see already he's pulling away from King out of La Source. So Northway with some pretty major pace there. Up the front, I had just noticed that Norton had responded to Nowak's increase in pace. Norton with a 2:16.9 and Nowak with a 2:17.03. So the battle up the front, very close, but still, they're keeping each other honest up there.
Yeah, they definitely are.
Battle for third's getting pretty intense too between L'Herbier and Gardner. The pace in that 0.27 car is not great. He's race pace 1 full second off pretty much everyone else in that lead pack.
Yeah, that's a one to keep an eye on, and I've just noticed that Shane Bowen has made his way, has been passed, by Jason Martin. So that move was made at the end of the Kemmel Straight. Fairly standard out braking maneuver. So Martin unleashed. Nowak unleashed. Griffin Gardner really showing signs of threatening for third place. So we've got a few battles unfolding in these early stages of this 2.4-hour race.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the thing is that since Nowak has actually disappeared up the road, L'Herbier has actually lost that draft. So now Gardner's got the advantage of having that draft, whereas Herbier has just got to push that year away.
Yes, indeed. You know, the Audi, very much the opposite of the Mercedes in terms of the aerodynamic hole it punches through the air. A lot more little aero bits and bobs on the Audi, but tell you what, that Mercedes, it can really suffer around a track like this, especially with iRacing's more recent balance of performance updates, which really equalize the cars in terms of straight line speed. The Audi has a very good fighting chance against the Mercedes at a track like this. So we'll see what Griffin Gardner can do versus L'Herbier. Up the Kemmel Straight, famous uphill after this sequence. A bit far behind for the moment, but we'll see what kind of run Gardner can get here. You see he's already starting to pull up slightly, but I don't think it will be enough for a move into the actual Lacombe corner. Still, I get the feeling that it may just be, well, like, have a look at that there. Have a look at the amount that he's caught up through those corners alone. It seems like Gardner has definitely set up his car to be more competitive in the middle sector, but Vincent Lebier struggling quite a bit through this section.
He doesn't look anywhere near as strong here, but then just breaks away coming back onto the big long straights, doesn't he? It just doesn't look like the car's set up as comfortably through the infield. But that last lap, much better pace from Lebier, but looking like it's just a matter of time before Gardner gets through.
That's exactly right. You know, that it looks like Gardner's especially strong through this, the Fanier chicane. Just losing out a little bit on the exit. If he can stay in touch with Herbier through this straight up here through Blanchimont, then the move will definitely be on.
Yeah, also on a side note, Jake Fox has returned back out on the circuit and then come back into the pits and now back out on the track again. So Jake Fox back out there, but 1.5 laps down now. He's going to have a very, very tough time with things for the rest of this race.
Yes, oh goodness me, Griffin Gardner very late on the brakes into the bus stop chicane, and I think that's actually lost him a little bit of momentum versus Vincent Lebier, which is a bit of a shame, but we can see just how strong Gardner is through the corners and under brakes.
Yeah, I think one thing Gardner does also have to keep an eye, be wary of, is that you don't want to outbrake yourself too many times, especially with these GT3 cars, because the more you're on the ABS, the more you're going to actually hit the brakes up, which will then in turn heat the wheels up and tires and overheat them eventually because you're pushing them so hard. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens and whether you can just look after those tires a little bit so you can try and get by.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, the GT3 cars with their ABS and traction control are often described as being ridiculously easy to drive, but when you're actually in the heat of a battle situation like this, those driver aids become almost hindrances if you overuse them or abuse them. And right there you can see the fronts going off just a little bit for Griffin Gardner. Had to take to the AstroTurf again. So not doing his incident count any favors at all. It's actually bringing him into the clutches, I think, of Joseph Cardamone, who had some pretty good pace last time by.
Out of this 3rd to 6th place battle, it's sort of the quickest is at the back of this field. So these 4 cars are all going to come together in the next 3 or 4 laps at the current pace. So this could end up being a very, very spicy battle.
Certainly could, and all of these guys have much experience in these cars and in sim racing in general, so it should be a good fight if it does eventuate. And coming into the bus stop once again, you can see Griffin Gardner closing up massively under brakes. Joseph Cardamone just looming in the background there, having to keep himself a little focused on his battle with Dwayne Burns, though.
Robert Northway as well, starting to catch up to the back of Shane Bowen, so we'll keep an eye on that battle in the next little bit too. Sorry, Cam.
I was just actually about to mention that battle between Northway and Shane Bowen, how he's caught up to that quickly.
Yeah, they're in a bit of their own sort of chain of cars. So we're noticing Lyndon Swaby in the pit lane, just getting going now.
Now, unusual time to pit. It's not a scheduled stop by any means.
Yeah, I'm not too sure whether that was to fix damage or not. It looks like it was to fix damage, actually. Lyndon came in with a beat up front quarter panel. Yeah, he actually got into the wall. He spun at Blanchimont the lap before.
Okay. Disappointing run, but he is still going. That is why each driver does have a spare car, and what that will do, it'll just reverse the strategy. It'll do his short stop now, do 2 full stints, and it could bring him still into some sort of contention. He'll just be able to lap out there by himself. Once everyone comes in the pit, as we said, 2 minutes in the pits, very, very long time to make these pit stops. They well and truly could get brought back into a pack without realising it when everyone comes in for their second stop.
That's exactly right. I'm going to have to wait. Oh no, Jason Martin! Jason Martin! Goodness me! That is not going to help him at all. He's managed to escape damage, just losing the rear end in Fanier, but that has put him all the way at the back of the pack that he was leading.
Yeah, that's put him all the way down to 12th now, and he's coming under attack to go down to 30th from Sheridan, so not too ideal. But again, the Audi not being the most friendliest of GT3s, then it does take a little bit of finesse to drive it quick.
And Northway's now tucked right under the rear wing of Shane Bowen.
Yeah, he certainly is, coming into the bus stop chicane. Going all over that anti-cut curbing is Northway. You can tell he's hungry for more positions. Continue his fight up the field. Meanwhile, in the background, John King and Dean Moll embroiled in a fight. Dean Moll just pulling out of a move into the braking zone. We'll have a more assured pass coming into Lacombe at the end of the straight. So all he has to do is stay up under King's rear wing coming through this sequence. It should be easy pickings.
Looks like he's actually got a very good run here on King as they come down the Kimmel Straight into Lacombe, although it's probably not quite going to be close enough to get a move done, so you'll sit station for the moment.
Gap at the front stayed very, very stable over the last few laps, sort of fluctuating between 2.5 and 3.5 seconds. So Nowak not really making the inroads he once was. The rest of the field pretty much as they were. These 3 battle packs that we've got going on in the mid pack is where it's all at, though.
Yeah, it certainly is. That gap up the front really started extending again. Josh Nowak and Christopher Norton just mostly even on pace, but Norton hacking out a little bit more of a lead every single lap. So as we look through the pack, that third place battle between Vincent L'Herbier and Griffin Gardner is also at a bit of a stalemate, it seems.
It actually extended out to about 7/10 of a second. Gardner, that's a massive moment for him.
Yeah, you don't want to get sideways through Blanchimont, especially in the Audi, because it usually ends up being a little bit more than in tears.
Tell you who this is helping, Mr. Cardamone. He's starting to leave Dwayne Burns behind, and pretty soon he'll be in the draft range of Griffin Gardner, so we might see Cardamone moving up a little bit further. He's still running in his starting position of 5th, but this could be a potential shot at a podium depending on how this battle goes.
Just saw Brad Marinas get a move done to start moving further forward. Now back up to 16th position after dropping all the way back to 23rd. So a good recovery drive from him as he's starting to make moves through the field. His pace is pretty good. Being back where he is, he's about a second faster than each car in his little battle pack that he's in, back in that 16th position right now.
Yes, indeed. Looking at John King and Dean Moll once again. Moll just pulling out to have a little bit of a look, but once again, he's slotting in behind. There hasn't been any decisive move done in this battle, and very strategic, I think, by Moll. Try and save as much fuel as he possibly can while he still has someone to draft with. Robert Northway, on the other hand, just up ahead. I don't think he has any intention of doing that. Still right on the back of Shane Bowen and looking for any opportunity he can to pass.
Yeah, for sure. He's all over the back of that Audi at the moment. It doesn't look like he's quite got that edge to get by at the moment, but he is looking like he's fairly racy and could possibly look at getting a move done somewhere if he's got the run out of the corner.
Jason Martin's broken from Alex Sheridan as well, so Martin will be back onto the tail of this pack and this fight, or these two fights, in probably a lap or so.
Yeah, interesting times indeed. As we're coming up to the first half hour of the race, almost complete. And it's at this point that the fuel tank will be getting a little lighter, the tyres still within their operating window. So you might see a bit more experimentation with regards to lap time, as I'm noticing Nowak managed to take 3/10 out of Christopher Norton on that lap. Still struggling just a little bit with the rear end of that Audi. Norton still with a very dominating lead and starting to pass lap traffic in the form of Brett Trosen.
He's actually done the right thing and actually just let them go instead of trying to give them a bit of a hard time, more or less.
Yes, of course, just lifting off and pulling over to the side of the straight. I suppose that's about as safe as you can get with regards to letting by lapped cars. So
Especially at the fastest point on the circuit. Here comes Northway.
Oh, yeah.
Big late lunge.
Definitely. Hasn't been able to quite get it done, though.
He'll
Tell you
have to
what.
be careful, though, because the King's not too far behind.
Yes, indeed. And now Brett Trosen just going straight off there at Pouon to let the battle pack of Gardner and L'Herbier by. Tell you what, Gardner was very close to making a move on L'Herbier into Brazil. It's looking very racy in this middle sector of the circuit. I think it's only a matter of time before he decides to pounce and make a decisive move, because Herbier is looking very uncomfortable into corner entry all the way through the middle sector.
What they've done too, these guys have given up 8 seconds to the pack ahead, so it's a massive gap from second to third now, and that's only happened in what, 8 laps or 9 laps or so, so that gap is extended and extended very, very quickly.
It certainly has, and I guess you got to wonder whether or not that's due to L'Herbier losing the draft of Nowak up ahead, because it might be worth quite a bit in the Mercedes. We're not quite sure. The battle is still continuing on, and Griffin Gardner, it's interesting because he seems happy behind L'Herbier most of the time, but when it comes to that starting point of the middle sector around the Lacombe-Malmedy area, he really gets aggressive and is trying to search for any spot he can to try and draw up alongside. He can just carry so much more momentum through those medium speed corners.
Josh Nowak took 1 second out of Christopher Norton last lap. 17.8 versus a 16.9. That gap now 1.6 seconds, and I don't think it'll be too long. We're going to see a fight for the lead in a couple of minutes' time.
Oh yeah, this is really exciting here at the moment. Nowak responding very well to Norton's pace in these last few laps. Nowak may just be wanting to draw up to the back of Norton, save a bit more fuel, and if he can, he'll just use up as much of the available grip that the tyres have to try and get that done.
Gardner also now looking to make a move. This is the closest he's been.
Yeah, certainly. Coming into Fagnier, this is an overtaking opportunity in some circumstances, but he'll have to settle for being behind L'Herbier again. Up till this point. Once again, he's just not close enough to get a move done, and once they get onto this back straight, L'Herbier is going to pull away slightly. There'll be a bit of a stalemate between these guys. You can see right there Griffin Gardner flashing his lights, letting L'Herbier know that he does want to pass. Tell you what, he's not as far behind as I thought he'd be. This could No, it won't be a move.
He just bounced it off the curb there, so it just hindered his run a tiny little bit. Have to do it all again, and probably going to have to happen in the middle of the circuit because he just doesn't quite look strong enough down the straight, does he?
No, certainly not, and you wouldn't want to try a move here at La Source because then L'Herbier has the entire Kemmel Straight to repass you. So it would be an ultimately pointless exercise. All Gardner can do for now is stay as close as he can down the straights, see if he can fire one up the inside through the corners.
I think if you're Gardner, though, it's not all that bad being behind a car, though, because you're able to save all that extra fuel than you would if you were in clear air. So a blessing in disguise possibly for Gardner, but he will still be getting frustrated being stuck behind and not quite able to get by.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, Gardner, I'm sure, has considered the fuel usage dilemma, but you could see from his car behavior, from the way he was flashing his lights earlier, he is desperate to try and get past L'Herbier here. Yet again, you can see he's just able to carry so much more through the corners. That's not a very good idea, Griffin. I'm sure he'd be getting up in the incident count now, the amount of times I've seen him go off track there.
Especially when you've still got 110 minutes of racing to go. You don't really want to be doing that only 34 minutes in. It's not the smart play to be running too wide and running off the circuit too much, but obviously have a little bit of a plan in his head on what he wants to do and how he wants to attack it.
That's right. Well, that's for him to know and for us to speculate on. So we'll see what they do in the coming laps. Meanwhile, the front gap has stayed consistent in this last lap. It was 1.6 last time by, but I can see Noack seems physically closer to Norton than he was a lap ago. The gap up the front now down to 1.4 seconds, so Noack taking another 2/10 out of Norton as the 34th minute of the race passes. Sorry, Jay.
Robert Northway has actually dropped off the back of Shane Bowen and is now under pressure from John King. King's ready to pounce.
Yeah, that's pretty odd there from Northway. Northway with actually 2:18.4 on the last lap versus King's 2:18.1, 2:18.2 from Bowen. So I think something might have happened to Northway in that last lap. Some kind of mistake. Maybe a short slowdown penalty, but though I know that some of the slowdowns here can be pretty brutal.
The other thing could be too that he's absolutely destroyed the tyres being so aggressive in that first half an hour that this next section of the race you're going to have to care for the tyres a little bit more and make sure that they make it home to the pits for this first pit stop in probably another 15-20 minutes time.
Yeah, that's right. And King, you can see he was very conservative on pace through the opening laps, and now it's really showing, especially through these corners, just how much more grip King has at the present time. Much more of the tyre life to go for King, so possibility that he could get by Northway, but we'll see whether or not he decides to go for more conservative strategy thinking and just stay behind and save a bit more fuel, because we know that he wasn't quite able to do that in the opening laps.
Looks like Brett Trosen has decided to retire from the race. He's pulled into the pits and it looks like his race is over, unfortunately. So at about 25 starters, we're down to 24, but it's still a very, very quality field, and we've still got a lot of drivers out there fighting and fighting hard.
Yes, indeed. One of them being Jason Martin, who has made his way back up to 12th place and is now pressuring, or starting to come into the range of pressuring Team Mong for 11th. Huh?
Yeah, Griffin Gardner in the pits. Yeah.
Oh, interesting strategy call there from Griffin to go for this early pit stop.
It's surprising that he's in already. That's, what are we, 36 minutes in, 37 minutes in. I guess if you were wanting to do this, you'd do your short stop now, fill the tank back up, and then wear the tyres down to nothing, empty the tank, and then you get another full tank and go again. But
yeah, pit
probably
more or less on the hour next time.
Surprising though, I didn't think I would have seen anyone do this, as we also got Daniel Stevens coming into the pits.
So this will be interesting. We'll see if the drivers around Griffin Gardner decide to respond to this, or if they decide to stick to their strategy. So Griffin Gardner and Daniel Stevens, the first cars to blink in this race, and we can see that Gardner is changing his tyres, it seems, unless I am completely mistaken. Cam, we were talking before the race. Is it possible to only use one tyre stop?
Not sure on the one tyre stop, because tyres and fuel are done separately, so I'm not entirely sure what the strategy call is that Griffin's making here. I could possibly see that he's splitting it up evenly as possible, but again, he's going to be on much more used tyres than everybody else at some stage.
Yeah, well, it seems like my initial question was a moot point anyway, because Griffin Gardner was on the jacks in that latter part of the stop, so he is out there with a completely fresh car and a full fuel tank. So yeah, very interesting call. See how it plays out for him.
Battle that's just come from nowhere as well, as Joseph Cardamone's under pressure from Burns. He's just made a massive mistake coming out of the bus stop, and Burns is now ready to pounce.
Yeah, certainly. It seems like Burns was actually slowly catching up to Cardamone before that point as well. So Cardamone, I think, has started to use up his car's capabilities. They come into, or up to the top of the hill for the 18th time, and that was some very liberal use of the curb from Cardamone. I don't think it'd be enough for a slowdown, though. You can see, though, Dwayne Burns in that draft really starting to catch up at the moment, and Cardamone not using as much of that curb as he probably would like to. Now, this is where we may see Dwayne Burns with a very good chance of getting this fourth position. You can see that Griffin Gardner was strong versus Vincent L'Herbier. And they're in the same cars as these two, so Burns.
You would think that the Audi would be strongest through the infield, and the long straights definitely would suit the Mercedes, and obviously the cars would be more likely to be set up in that way as well. So we're going to see this gap close up, you would think, in the next few hundred meters, and then may extend. In saying that, have a look at that big mistake there from Cardamone. This is odd now.
It certainly is, but it's right when they come onto the back straight, so I don't know how much of a chance Burns is going to have. Cardamone's exit was not optimal. It's certainly not optimal here. Have a look at that. Burns has got a major run. He might even go up the inside of Blanchimont.
You have to be
He's going to have a go. Yeah, certainly. Will Cardamone yield coming into Blanchimont? Yes, he will. So Dwayne Burns going through to take fourth place.
Cut back.
Yeah, well, he's immediately protecting the inside as Burns, so I don't think Cardamone has much of a chance to fight back against that.
Good move.
So there we go. Yes, and Cardamone making the same mistake again.
So Cardamone's really starting to struggle with the tyres on that car, and this could be like why we've seen a few of these guys jump into the pits early. Just the tyre life is nowhere near there from what some people may have been expecting.
Yes, indeed. At least in the early stages of the race, where everyone's driving super hard and trying to just figure out where they're at, Northway, I just noticed, made a bit of a mistake coming out of La Source. Tiny bit of oversteer. Doesn't seem to have harmed him much relative to his battle with Mole and Martin.
Cardamone thought about making the move around the outside on Jane Burns, but wasn't able to do it, and this is going to be on again still.
Yes, indeed. Certainly on between these guys. But have a look at what Dwayne Burns may be able to do through this middle sector without a car in front of him causing aero upsets. He's just able to make so much more use of the mid-corner speed of the Audi with that clear air in front of him. You can see he's leaving Cardamone in the dust through this particular sector of the track. I think where Cardamone has been struggling in this last lap or so is corner exit. He just has not been able to get the power down, which is pretty crucial in the Mercedes. It's one of the cars that is best completely from the apex of the corner than the other GT3 cars. It's just able to hook up that immediate corner exit like no other car in the class can. It seems like Cardamone has lost that ability for now. Burns just a little bit wide at the apex of Blanchimont. Just manages to keep it on the track. Good under brakes though is Cardamone.
Mercedes is very well known for being the strongest under brakes with its massive rotors, so it's going to be interesting to see whether Cardamone could possibly send one up the inside at some point. But then he does have to remember that with those big rotors does come the possibility of overheating your tyres quite easily, so he's going to have to think about this strategically.
You know, he won't have much of a chance through this sequence of corners, but we'll see at the end of the Kemmel Straight. Oh, Dwayne Burns, just a little bit too much curb there, and that unsettled the car slightly. So now Cardamone in the draft, and you can see Burns going extremely defensive. About as defensive as you can go without going on the grass, and Cardamone, he's testing the waters here, is Joseph, just to see how far he can push this car under brakes.
Yeah, it would actually be not a silly thing to do either, especially for later in the race if you do end up in a battle where you're going to have to try and outbrake someone.
Just going to cut back to James Stacey and Bram Reyners, because Reyners is ready to get a move done and get another position up the field. He'll now take 12th position away from Stacey. Jason Martin also in the pits, so a few strategy calls really coming into play, and that was very, very close between Stacey and Reyners there under brakes.
Yes, certainly was. But M continuing his run up the field. Now, Jason Martin. This is another one that interests me because he was threatening that 11th place to top 10. And the rest of those guys, I can assume, will either be going long in their first stint or just splitting up the race equally. So
it's on for the lead as well. Sorry, boys. It's on for the lead. Have a look at how close Norton and Nowak are now. This is really on.
Yeah, goodness me. That's an insane amount of time that I think Nowak has managed to make up. It's under a second now. Just over 8/10. Last time by it was 1.3 seconds. So Nowak has taken a huge chunk of time out of Norton.
Yeah, and I don't think Norton's actually been backing off either. So Nowak's had some very decent pace, and it seems like that kinetic car has been set up for the later part of the race. So this could be something that we may have to keep an eye on, especially in the last stint of the race when the guys are on double stinted tyres.
Norton now just able to hold onto the gap. Didn't really close too much up in the draft, but you can see Nowak's car looks a lot more comfortable in this stage of the stint in comparison to Norton.
Yeah, just a little bit more front grip, it seems, on Nowak's machine. Norton having to go for that early turn in at Brazil to keep the car nice and planted, nice and balanced through these sequences. So Norton may very well have overworked his front tyres here, which you certainly don't want at a circuit like Spa, where your speed through medium to high speed corners is absolutely everything. Oh, just a little bit of tyre scrub through Fagnier from Norton. And a little bit unsettled on the exit as well. So he's really starting to feel the pressure now.
We'll start to see this gap close up down the straight here as well. So it's 0.8 of a second. And we'll see it close down to 0.7. 0.6. It's closing and closing and closing with this draft.
Or just a little bit of aero unsettling on Noak's part. Really drawing up in the bus stop chicane. We'll see what the gap is here at the line. Norton and then Noak. That gap is now 0.816, so not much taken out of him this time, but Noak is there and putting the pressure on.
Almost identical lap times that time around as well, so not much between those two cars on that lap. This is the closest battle on the circuit right now as well.
Another car in the pits. It's Jake Fox back in the pits again. Not sure why.
It's his 4th time in the pits as well, so that could be race over. I've got a feeling that Fox has gone out there on the circuit with a setup not suiting his car behaviour or suiting his driving style, and he's just decided to park it because he's not handling this race overly well. Wouldn't be great to see him DNF the race. Hopefully he can get out there and just get some points, because every point will count when it comes at the end of this championship. So hopefully we'll see him back out there. Also in the pits is Trevor Mack now as well.
Yes, indeed. Trevor Mack from 14th position out on track. He's up from 23rd, so he's having a pretty good run so far. Because we've got to remember that Griffin Gardner is continuing to make his way up, so that will be one position cleansed, I suppose.
See how close Noak can get this time.
Yes, indeed. He seems just a little further back than he was. So I think what Noak needs to focus on is his exit from those slow corners coming onto the straights. That's where he can make up the most time, get within that draft range, save a bit of fuel, maybe make a move. Neither of them going for the pits this time around.
Well, almost at 1/3 race distance as well. So now coming up to 50 minutes complete.
So they have two choices here. They can either decide to go at 3rd race distance, or they can go to the hour and go for that short fill at the end. What do you do in whose situation?
I think if you are in Noak's situation, you go as long as you can to make that final stop as short as possible. You go as long as you can, save as much fuel as you can now that you're back in some draft range. If you can save a couple of mils here and there, that could turn into a second in the pit stops. It means you get more track position anyway, and then a shorter pit stop at the end. So I think Noak needs to go as long as possible, save as much fuel as possible. See if you can try and jump Norton in this pit stop or the next one. That's my thinking of it.
And if you're Norton, what do you do to defend your lead?
Good question.
I think you just got to try and push as hard as possible, because you don't want to give up the spot to Noak, because at the rate he's going, he's actually going to get by anyway. So yeah, that's a real head scratcher, because if you do push, then you're going to go shorter, but you know that Noak's quicker anyway at the moment. So yeah, that's a really tough one.
I'm glad I'm not out there trying to work out what to do, because it would be a really, really tough decision to try and work out how to play the strategy from here. It's a really open race with lots of different options. I really like the length. I think it's a really cool length of a race in these cars. We know that the GT3s can go an hour to an hour and 5 minutes generally. It means it does open it up for the possibility of fuel saving and making it home on one stop. May not be a strategy that works for everyone, but it's such an open race strategy wise. I really think it's a fantastic length.
Yeah, certainly. The whole 1/10 of 24 hours thing really seems to lend itself to some interesting conundrums faced by everybody here. Now, this time for the pits, neither of them go again. They're both waiting for the other to blink. It's a typical scenario, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it is.
Thing with it is I don't think either of them are going to blink. I think they're both going to go as long as they possibly can. Also got James Robbie in the pits to come in to make his first stop as well. Jake Fox has gone back out on the circuit as well. So after 4 trips down the lane, he's back out there again, and hopefully he can finish the race and get some points.
That's it. Have some kind of defence in his fight for second in the championship standings with Norton. So James Robbie taking tyres, as well as filling up the tank. He's going to go back out pretty soon.
Looks like he'll tuck in just behind Trevor Mack and ahead of Lyndon Swabby, so he will slot back into 22nd position out on circuit.
No, it just actually made a mistake there just before, actually running wide a little bit too deep under brakes.
So that has certainly not helped him in his quest to grab the lead of this race from Christopher Norton. It's an interesting one because the GT3 cars there. Oh, there we go. Another mistake from Nowak. Yeah, just running wide for the first part of Fanye. Christopher Norton will
he actually lost the road in.
Yeah, goodness me. Norton will be looking at his F3, noticing that gap growing, and smiling to himself, I think, because that gives him a little more to work with in terms of his strategy.
I think this changes things for Nowak. If he's starting to struggle with grip, you can see a few little mistakes creeping in. With 90 minutes to go, I think it wouldn't be too bad an idea to jump into the pits now, get a fresh set of tyres, be able to regroup, go again. Might be the thing that he needs to do just to get himself a bit more comfortable. Another massive moment for him there, almost looped it around at the bus stop.
Goodness me, yeah, Nowak really struggling at the moment. I think in his hot pursuit of Norton, he is wrung as much grip out of the car as he possibly can, and yeah, I think if you're Nowak, you pit next lap, surely.
Moment, this is the closest fight out on track 2, so not too much else happening. The rest of the field has really stretched out since a few cars jumped into the pits. Sorry, Cam.
I was just going to mention, Nowak is teammates with Fox, and Fox is in the same car. Is he possibly being a guinea pig for Nowak in a strategy sense and doing different types of strategy calls?
Getting out there, testing some different pressures and seeing how they go for a few laps, coming into the pits, changing and going again, maybe.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point you raised, Cam. That could be a possible route that the Workiva Kinetic Racing cars are employing.
They are very clever, that team. They know how to play strategy and they know how to make things work. That is definitely a possibility. Saying that Jake Fox has a championship that he's trying to hold on to second position. So I don't know if it would be a strategy that would work as John King comes into the pits now.
Yes, indeed. So John King was battling at the time with Alexander Sheridan.
There is a battle actually starting to happen out on circuit because Phil Otto's closing into the back of Rory Boyd, and last lap around was a full second quicker. Boyd now probably going to come under pressure from Otto in the DPR car at the end of the Kemmel Straight? Maybe. Maybe.
And Otto has yet to pit as well, so some pretty good relative pace there from Phil Otto, considering he's basically at the end of a stint. So Rory Boyd doesn't seem like he's having much trouble with the front end grip of his car, but it just seems Phil Otto is straight up quicker than him at this present time.
Just looks a lot stronger, doesn't he? Maybe it's those beautiful green wheels. I don't know. Don't know about the green wheels. That don't match the livery that much, but
keeping the tyres forever green.
I always say it's better to go out on green tyres. It puts a whole new meaning to it, doesn't it?
Oh.
Yeah.
I just want to also point out that that battle between Northway and Bowen has closed back up.
That's Northway's right there again.
Yeah, for sure. So Shane Bowen seems like the vast majority of his race has been looking at cars in his rearview mirrors. He's had to go on the defensive, I think, for much of this race so far. And Northway, well, we know that Northway, oh goodness me, that was very close to a slowdown for Northway, if not getting a slowdown. So you can tell he's still very much on the aggressive pursuit, is Northway.
Rory Boyd has just lost that spot to Phil Otto, and Boyd comes into the pits to make his first stop.
Good decision. I think if he could see that the pace differential was that much, maybe it's time to just jump in, get himself some fresh tyres, some extra fuel, and see how much pace he can get out of that thing now, possibly mount a defence against Otto. Following him into the pits, Daniel Aitchison from right behind, and Griffin Gardner is going to go by them out on track.
And Aitchison started this race in the pits, so he's come back in to get this first pit stop out of the way. But Aitchison started a long way back from the rest of the field. He worked his way up a few positions and now back in again.
And that long trundle through this incredibly lengthy pit lane here at Spa must be incredibly tedious from the driver's seat. But everyone has to do it. Everyone needs to make that trip at least once. So I suppose that's some consolation. Up the front, it seems the gap has not changed all that much, out to 1.979 at the line. So the top four very spread out at the moment.
Interesting though that Nowak just did his fastest lap of the race last lap. So Nowak his pace has come back after those few mistakes, and now he's well and truly on a charge. He just did a 16.4, only 200ths of a second off the fastest lap of the race as Alex Sheridan comes into the pits. Northway now is ready to pounce. He's going to make a move here, I think. See if he can.
For sure. For sure. I think it's 100% on at the moment. Bowen going defensive once again. Will Northway be able to take him around the outside? Doesn't have as much of a run as I think we expected him to, but he's going to be very late on the brakes as Northway.
Around the outside.
The outside. Oh, or is he? A little bit of contact between those guys, and Bowen actually defending rather well, but Northway, with that mid-corner momentum, he takes it.
What a move. Around the outside, if you don't mind. That's a fantastic move. Well done to Northway. And now he's going to be good to see how he does with a little bit of clean air. Downfall is there mustn't be much fuel left in the tank as we hit 1 hour and 1 minute complete in this 2.24 hour race.
Yeah, I'd say we'll probably see Northway in either on this lap or possibly the next lap, because it probably won't be a lot of fuel left.
Leader in, and Nowak follows him in too. So our top two jumping to take their stops. Noak trying to make up as much time as he can, breaking as late as he can for the entry into the pits. So...
Olivia just made a massive mistake at the bus stop as he's trying to come into the pits, and another mistake, almost hit that wall.
Ouch, goodness me. It's a bit of an awkward way to enter the pits, and that's going to have given Dwayne Burns quite a bit of extra time, as would Cardamone. So all these guys jumping at the same time. This top 5, top 6 crew. Now it's all going to come down to
Northway staying out.
That Noak decides to do. Oh, that is very interesting from Northway.
Dean Mole also staying out. Now they're the cars that we saw tucked in behind other cars for a long portion of this race, so they have probably been able to save a lap or two of fuel.
Yeah, very possible, but these guys are at the front as they come into their spots now. It'll be interesting to see what Noak does. Will he take a shorter stop, maybe? Make a very short middle stint, and... I don't know. That wouldn't make much sense, would it? All things considered.
I don't think so, because, well, you could possibly do this middle stint as that splash and dash sort of thing, but he's been stopped for too long to have done that now, so that strategy doesn't appear to be in play. So it'll be very interesting to see what he's going to actually be doing as Norton goes up on the jacks, and so does Noak.
Don't forget we've got live timing for this and all of our events up on our website at vanceline.com. Keep up to date with everything happening out on the circuit throughout each of our broadcast events. Away, here comes Noak.
Yep. Well, there we go. That's it. He's short-filled, and he's going to have a shorter middle stint.
Yeah, wow, very, very big gains, actually.
Yeah, goodness me.
Massive difference in the pit stop times for Norton in comparison to everybody else. Norton, 69 second stop, 1 minute 9, 57 seconds for Noak, and Leherbier with a 49 second stop. So that's 20 seconds gained. Norton.
Goodness.
To what was first and third. This is massive.
Yeah, and I tell you what, a big part of that would be the fact that Norton has not had a single car to follow throughout his entire first stint. He started from pole, and he had led every lap since then. So even with the lap traffic, he didn't have much of a chance to draft and save a bit of fuel. So it's maybe good for Norton, being back in the field a little bit more, but we'll see.
One thing I'm wondering too, though, the difference between Noak and Norton is around about 12 seconds in their pit stop. Pit lane penalty, maybe? 2 tyres, or is there been a speeding in pit lane penalty for Norton, because that's 17 seconds. That could add up.
Yeah, certainly could.
That does make sense to some extent, though, because the Hibier's actually gained in the pit stop, so yeah, not entirely sure, but we'll have to actually see what happens at the end of the race.
Northway, Mole, Stacey and McLeod all come in, so everyone now in the pits to make their pit stop, or have made their first stop in this race. Noak now leads. Gap between Noak and Norton is 10 seconds.
Wow. Quite a gain.
Looks like Griffin Gardner is race done as well.
Really? Oh, goodness me, yes. What on earth happened to him?
See if we can pick up a replay and see what's going on.
Yeah, that happened a short while ago, actually. A couple of laps back. That's very disappointing to see. He was definitely a challenger for the podium.
Yep, was well and truly in with contention. We'll see if we can pick up exactly
Looks
what
to me
has
like
gone
he just went straight on at the bus stop chicane. Yeah.
It's a technical failure of some sort by the looks of it. Strange.
Yeah, I think that might have been the case, because he was going straight ahead and then the wheel suddenly went left and he didn't actually go left, so yeah, that's very weird.
on screen
that
is
a shame.
9th and 10th at the moment. They will jump up to 6th and 7th position. Dane Burns versus Jason Martin. Martin now out there, no tyres in his stop, only a 30-second pit stop for fuel. He's taking the short option in this first stint. And now chasing down Dane Burns. Dean Mole, interesting. He's jumped up to 4th position. He's just done that splash and dash 17-second stop to get himself some track position. He'll probably be pitting in about 6, 7, 8 laps. Come back in and do that full stop and see where it ends up. Not a bad ploy to do something a little bit different from where he was back in 10th, 11th, 12th.
Yeah, certainly. You haven't got much to lose taking a gamble like that from that position. So I think if he was fighting for the podium, he would go for a bit of a safer strategy. But I think definitely this is worth a try with the amount of windows this is open for people. He's just run a little wide on the exit of Stavilo, though, so consistency may be an issue on these old tyres.
Adam McLeod in the pits and stopped for nearly 2 minutes. So something's happened to McLeod in his pit stop. Stopped for a very, very long time.
That's concerning because he wasn't doing too badly. He's only just gone up on the jacks. May have been a penalty of some kind applied to him.
It's a very long stop though.
Maybe he did get a speeding in pit lane penalty because he was actually over the speed limit a little bit as he came into pit lane.
Been in the pit lane for 3 minutes, stopped for 2 minutes and 12 seconds. That's an incredibly long pit stop time for McLeod. He's gone a lap down from that too.
That is going to hurt quite a bit. He had managed to do very well up to that point. So now his closest rival, goodness me, who would his closest rival be?
Daniel Aitchison. He's got 42 seconds to Aitchison up the road as we've got Rory Boyd and Phil Otto back at it again after their pit stop.
Oh, we have two, and Aitchison right behind them, looking to make a move, possibly. So now all three of these guys have pitted, so they are fully in battle mode at the moment. Three Mercedes making their way around the Circuit du Spa-Francorchamps. And it looks to me like Otto was a little more conservative coming out of Stavilo, so these guys, I think at least one of them will be making some kind of move into the bus stop.
Might be
They're drawing
Aitchison.
up incredibly close. Yeah, have a look at them through Blanchimont. The amount of aero push that Aitchison will be experiencing then, absolutely crazy. And there we go. Little bit of a look from Rory Boyd. Just a little bit of room left for such a move by Otto, but Boyd didn't make anything of it. He's made a mistake. Yep, so Aitchison will go right on by. That's given Phil Otto a massive advantage. I'm sure he'll absolutely be loving that, but still, Aitchison's lap, despite getting held up a little bit in the final corner, was still a full 1.5 seconds quicker than Otto. So look out for Daniel Aitchison on the move right now.
Also got Trevor Mack back in the pits to make his second pit stop. A little bit of surprising time for him to make that stop, but he will know better than us what he's doing strategy-wise. He's also on for second place because that gap is closed down to 0.7 of a second.
Oh, it has too. And Christopher Norton under slight pressure now from Vincent L'Herbier as Trevor Mack comes out of the pits behind them.
So
Yeah,
Mack's
4
just driven
tenths quicker.
straight through the pits, so that's strange for Mack. There's no drive-through penalties in this series, so I'm not sure why he's just driven through. I'm going to say he might have made a mistake and the cars sort of sent him towards the pit lane. He's just decided to go down there to regroup, or maybe had some sort of tech issue that he's had to try and fix in the pits.
I will go back and check that for you guys to see what comes up.
Last lap around Norton, a 16.8. Nowak a 16.4. And L'Herbier a 16.4 as well. So these guys starting to put pressure on Norton from ahead and behind. The Kinetic team, teammates, different looks, different teams, but all from the same banner of the Kinetic team. Norton now is really starting to feel some pressure from ahead and behind as Nowak stretches the gap out to 10.5 seconds at the front.
Update on the Trevor Mack situation. He did actually come in for a stop. His pit bay is one of the first.
Okay. There we go. Love it when your timing doesn't actually come up with a pit stop time. It's always helpful. Absolutely throws you off your game.
It's a bit of an interesting pit lane here, isn't it? Because it uses both the Grand Prix and the classic pit lanes. So if you're one of the first pit spots, then it's certainly an interesting one, because after you've gotten your pit stop done, then you have to go all the way through the endurance pit lane to get back onto the circuit. So I don't envy people like Trevor Mack who will have one of those first pit bays.
So Lyndon Swabby get a move done on James Stacey. So Swabby now up to 15th position, making his way back through the field. Was our last starter. He did start from the pit lane and he's come all the way up 10 spots and moving in the right direction. Also got Alexander Sheridan in our only BMW in the field, starting to feel pressure from behind from Daniel Stevens. And the battle for second is where it's at. We'll stay with this battle because it is getting tighter and closer every single lap. Another 2/10 advantage for L'Herbier over Norton last time by.
Yes, indeed. And Norton flashing his lights, not quite sure at whom.
Probably at us.
Probably, most likely. Hello, Christopher. We acknowledge you. But coming into this middle sector, I would expect Norton to be the stronger of the two. As have a look at L'Herbier on the absolute limit of adhesion. The entry to Bruxelles. You can see Norton already starting to pull that gap out once again. So the Audi once again proving to be superior through this section of the circuit, and I think it's just it's a question of consistency from L'Herbier's part, because he ran wide in that first part of Pouon as well. So I don't know whether it's because he's pushing too hard in his pursuit, or he's just not happy with the car at the moment, but you can see that it's really the straights where L'Herbier would make his gains, I suppose, on Norton.
See how much time he can gain down this straight now. It's 0.8 of a second as they start the run.
It looks to me like there won't be much of an aero washout through Blanchimont. There you go. Have a look at that. Almost right on line. A little wide on the exit, but he manages to get it done very nicely. And coming into the bus stop, that's another opportunity to shave off a few tenths. Of course.
Josh Nowak just set the fastest lap of the race as well. Sorry, Race.
Oh, yeah, no worries. I was just going to go on a little bit of a tangent about how we still call that final chicane the bus stop, even though it doesn't resemble a bus stop anymore.
We also call the chicane at Daytona the bus stop as well, but there's never even been a bus stop there.
Well, no, but that's because the I think the name bus stop comes more from its resemblance to a bus stop rather than there actually being a bus stop there.
Much like the one at Watkins Glen, it's not called the bus stop officially, but everyone does call it a bus stop chicane.
Yes. However, the one here at Spa, despite an intense reconfiguration, one of the most intense reconfigurations of any chicane I've ever seen, it's still officially called Chicane L'Arrêt de Bus.
Glad you said that.
In the local language. I don't even know if I said it correctly.
Said it much better than what I would have.
Yeah.
You've heard me try and speak in a little bit of an accent. It's never ever anywhere near as good as you're speaking.
This battle for second, it's still at a bit of a stalemate, I have to say.
It's on for fourth though, sorry, Race.
Oh,
Mole and Cardamone. Cardamone's closed up last lap 2.5 seconds quicker than Dean Mole. Mole's out there on this completely alternate strategy. He's on old tyres. Just did his splash and dash pit stop before, and he'll be in the pits in probably 2 or 3 laps. And Cardamone threw up into 4th position.
I think that was a wise move from Mole there. He saw Cardamone coming, and I think he was just letting him go.
Also had another change of position too. Robert Northway's just gone past Jason Martin.
All right, so Northway continuing his fight through the field. Started in 14th and up into 8th position, which is really good to see.
Oh, well, very, very late lunge too from Northway to get that done, and Martin just saw him coming and tucked back in behind. So, yeah, Northway's well and truly on a charge. It's past, 7 cars, plus 7, second biggest mover in the field. Dean Mole is plus 8, but he will be out of sequence. And Lyndon Swabby is up 10 from his starting position up into 15th.
Indeed he is. So a lot of interesting strategy, rejigging all throughout the field, and we don't know how the cards are going to fall until those final pit stops are done. Going back to second, though, it looks like L'Herbier is in the draft of Norton, well and truly, actually weaving down the straight, trying to distract Norton a little bit. Norton with a much narrower entry to Lacombe, though, and that's going to allow him to carry that momentum through to the next few corners.
Surprised how well that worked for Norton. He was really shallow, but he was able to carry so much speed. Surprised how shallow he was there, and it just worked so well. He was able to pull 2.5 tenths just in that one corner.
Yeah, it seems to me like Norton has his car set up a little bit more for mid-corner rotation. I think you can see in the characteristics of these two cars, L'Herbier is taking a little bit of a wider entry to a few corners, getting that arc, the wide arc through the corner that you would consider a racing line normally. But have a look at Norton here, straight to the inside of Farnier. Oh, goodness me, there we go. I don't think it is on for second anymore after that.
Well, it's given Norton a bit of breathing room, hasn't it?
Yeah, just lost it on the curbing, which is a bit strange.
Yeah, I haven't seen that happen before. The car just bucked sideways. I don't think there was much L'Herbier could do to save that other than not using the curb.
You know, CPR replay and pick up exactly how that happened, and Kim just probably took too much curb and just got the right-hand wheels on the grass there, and that just threw the car around a little bit more, over-rotated the car a little bit.
Yeah, well, I suppose, like, at the point where L'Herbier got up on 2 wheels, that's the point where you start turning left to take the left-hander, so I think that may have been the wrong time to do it. Muscle memory, unfortunately, getting the better of him there.
Battle on screen is for 16th and 17th position, James Robbie and James Stacey. Robbie last lap 1.3 seconds quicker and closing up very, very quickly to the tail of James Stacey. But Robbie out there with fairly old tyres in comparison. 11 lap old tyres for Robbie and only 5 lap old for Stacey. I don't know how long this will take because Robbie's pace looks very, very good. I don't think it'll take too long.
Yeah, certainly, and Robbie with a cleaner looking car as well. Stacey has a little bit of damage to his rear wing, so that's not going to help the aerodynamic balance of his car. Have a look at how much Robbie catches up in the entry to those corners. I get the feeling that this may be done as soon as the bus stop, if not Lacombe on the next lap. As you can see, Robbie looking very hungry at the moment. Oh, and have a look at Stacey as well. He's really struggling for grip through Blanchimont. Robbie just having a little look, but Stacey is just managing to stay ahead for now.
It's actually a little bit of damage on the rear wing of James Stacey as well, so possibly hurting his straight line speed a little bit. I think this is move done now. James Robbie up the inside. We'll get this done under brakes. Or will he?
No, it looks like Stacey just decided to go late on the brakes and try and maintain a bit of momentum running wide, but I think he's recognised that that position is Robbie's now, so those guys will continue on. This is a good opportunity for James Stacey to save a little bit more fuel.
Just had a mild heart attack because I saw Josh Nowak's name disappear off the timing screen, but it's reappeared again. He's just having a little bit of technical issues, so hopefully he's all good out in front at the moment. Leads by 11.1 seconds, so stretching that gap out.
I just want to update you guys on the Jake Fox situation. He had a very major off at Blanchimont on his lap 31. So that's put him back out of contention once again. I don't know if we'll see him back out on track after that little adventure.
CPR replay up on screen now, and we'll see if we can pick up exactly what happened to him.
Exactly what happened to him is quite dramatic, I have to say.
Oh, yep. Oh, gee, watch out, cameraman. He nearly cleaned him up. That was a massive hit. And then another second hit, and then a rollover. That's a scary crash.
Yeah, certainly is. Especially if you were in that real life situation with a crash like that. I'm surprised that we don't see more insane incidents in real life in that section of the circuit. I suppose it does have something to do with real life racing drivers having a lot more money and their personal safety on the line, so they tend to be a little more careful through that section.
Graham Rayner's on screen trying to get past Alex Sheridan as he makes his way back through the field after his lap 1 spin.
Have a look at the run he's got. Yeah, that's excellent stuff from Bram. It's going to be done quite easily, I think. Alexander Sheridan with no defense at all. He close up just a little bit in the braking zone side to side, but Bram Renier's 100% through on that, and I think if he keeps going at that rate, he may be looking at a top 10 before the end of this race, which would be a great recovery drive.
Agree 100%. It'd be a very, very good job if he can get back up into the top 10, considering where he was on lap 1. Got Lyndon Swabby back in the pits as well. He's coming to make his second stop. So we're at 1 hour to go right now. Final hour of the race officially. We're at about 27 laps of racing to go. So pretty much from now, you can pit and get home. We'll start to see a few guys in. Probably Dean Mole next lap as well, as Mole comes under pressure here.
Sorry, go on, Cam. What were you going to say?
I was actually going to say possibly even this, but never mind. But yeah, it looks like Mole's coming under a lot of pressure, and he's going to lose another position. Probably heading into Lecum. Oh, that's very close.
Certainly is, and Dwayne Burns lost quite a bit of momentum there. But we'll see how much he catches up through this section. You can see right there the lack of grip that Dean Mole has. Dwayne Burns just able to use much more of his car through that section. So we'll see if Mole comes in at the end of this lap. Goodness me, look at the time difference, I think, between Dean Mole and Dwayne Burns last lap. 2:21.0 for Dean Mole, 2:18.1 for Dwayne Burns, and here we go. In the middle sector, this is where Burns is very strong, and Mole recognizes that. Out on the marbles a bit, but Dwayne Burns is through. So Dean Mole, I think, preparing for his second pit stop of the night.
Yeah, when you're out of sequence too, you don't really need to fight because it will hurt you long term as well. With it being out of sequence, with him being, although he's in position at the moment, or was in position there, being ahead, he's not in contention with these guys. He's racing his own race. He's actually racing against the guys back in 15th, 16th. So if he loses too much time fighting, it does negate any advantage that you're trying to get with this alternate strategy. So better to get out of the way, not lose too much time, continue to fight on. And I think the difference in pace that we're seeing now is purely down to tyre life, I feel.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the case. These tyres in the GT3 cars, they do last a very long time. They are built for endurance racing, but when they go off, they certainly do go off 100%. So Dean Mole will be looking to fix that on his machine as he comes into the pits.
What this will do, it'll put him at a big advantage with the guys that he's going to come out of the pits and be battling with. The likes of Daniel Stevens, who's on 20 lap old tyres already. Probably going to come out behind Stevens, but Stevens is going to find himself in a similar situation in probably another 3 or 4 laps to what Mole is now. Mole will now have the advantage when he comes out, being able to put in very, very quick lap times. He'll probably jump quite a few drivers with the best tyres in the field.
Yeah, for sure. I think this has been a very good strategy call from Mole. Certainly made him leapfrog a few of the guys that he was fighting with before. Having made his way up into 7th before the pit stop, I think that he could be another contender for a top 10 by the end of the race. We'll see what happens. Bram Reniers goes on by.
Closest battle on track at the moment is Jason Martin versus John King. King's actually closing up quite quickly to Martin. I think Martin might have a little bit of trouble in his car at the moment.
Yeah, I noticed him rotating a little bit too much through Brazil, did Martin, so maybe some rear tyre issues for him this time around. But that pace from John King at the moment, they're actually... Last lap, they were actually quite close on pace, only 11 thousandths apart. So this looks to be quite the scintillating battle we got going on here. But Jason Martin continuing to hold his own here in an unfamiliar car on an unfamiliar track.
Noak's just set the fastest lap of the race once again too, Reese, a 16.2.
Yeah, right. So that's pretty... excellent pace from Mr. Noak. Very good response to Norton, who has only just exited Radion. So that's quite the gap, but we'll see how that gap looks when these guys come in for their final stop in, goodness me, I'd say about 10 minutes time.
Yeah, I think you're probably about right there.
Dean Mole's come out of the pits. He's out on track in 19th position. He's behind Phil Otto, but he's at the advantage now.
Mine's
fresh
the
tyres.
slowdown, I think. Oh, he's actually let John King by.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. That's very interesting. Oh, King making things a little bit harder for himself by running wide on the exit of La Source, and I think Martin just lifting a little bit to try and keep a bit of a gap between himself and King. That might be strategic from Martin to try and save a bit of fuel before his next pit stop. Martin pitted on his lap 20, or his lap 19 rather, so...
Well, he's pretty much gone that even stint. Fitted on lap 19. He's now 19 laps into this stint, so possibly see Jason Martin in this lap or the next lap. We've probably got about 24 laps or so of racing to go, so won't be too far before we'll see Martin back in to make his second stop.
I'll tell you what, John King is starting to gap Jason Martin by a fair margin around the next part of this lap, so Martin, I think, definitely starting to feel those old tyres starting to get away from him.
I also think Martin didn't take tyres at his first stop.
No,
it was only
actually,
30-second stop, so I'm pretty sure he's double stinting tyres as well. So
I remember that now, Jay. You pointed that out when he took the pit stop. So, yeah, he's definitely feeling it now. Those tyres will be nearly 40 laps old. I don't know how you could cope.
It'll be interesting because you actually have the newest tyres when he comes in for his pit stop.
Yeah.
And he's had some decent pace as well, so could possibly see him get inside the top 5 by the end of the race.
You certainly could. I mean, if Jason Martin manages to pull this off, that'd be almost, I'd say, the drive of the race. He's going to stay out for one more lap at least. Starting to face a bit of pressure, though, from Andres Slisans. Slisans still has yet to take his second stop.
I don't think this move's going to take very long as well. He's going to get this done very, very quickly. The pace difference is just extreme. 2 seconds quicker last lap. So I don't think this will take too long, Reese.
No, certainly not. What was the pace gap? 2:22.69, 2:18.1. Yeah, that's fairly reasonable. Although I suppose it's compounded by the fact that Martin...
He did move a slide, didn't he?
Yeah, he let King by, and then he had a couple of other incidents with trying to keep a gap between himself and King throughout the lap, so that may explain it. Still, having said that, Slisans is starting to gain ever so slightly on Martin, so if Martin doesn't pit soon, he's going to likely lose a little more time letting another car by.
Josh Nowak has once again set the fastest lap of the race, a 16.1. Wow. Nowak is well and truly on a charge. It's faster than every other car out on track. Closest to him was Norton, 1.5 seconds off the pace.
Nowak just pulling that incredible pace out of thin air. And I think that's very much intentional. He is not drafting with anyone at the moment, so he'll have to compensate for the lack of fuel-saving opportunities by just going hell for leather. And seeing if he can just stay ahead of Norton when he takes that final pit stop. Norton, having just made his way past Aitchison, who is currently in 16th position. Norton with a 2:17.5. I don't know how he'll be able to respond to this. We'll just have to wait until the next round of pit stops for these guys.
Well, that pit stop's definitely hurt Norton because he lost so much time in that stop. Massive amount of time, especially in comparison to Nowak. It's identical cars, but a 12-second longer stop. It just doesn't seem to add up too much. So Norton will be ruining his pit stop, wondering why he's lost so much time. He probably will know why he's lost so much time. We can only guess, but it's made it very, very hard for Norton in this race now.
Jason Martin still hasn't come in for his second stop. So that's quite interesting. He might almost be going for this short final stint.
Maybe.
Now on 41 lap old tyres, I don't know how much longer you'd want to go out, especially where there's only 22 laps to go. Probably would be hanging out to get some fresh tyres on that car. They won't be feeling too great by now. Those Pirellis will be absolutely destroyed.
For sure. Nowak just starting his 42nd lap, another 16.1. Norton's lap is a 17.0, so he's managed to find a bit more pace. And L'Herbier in the pits now, so
first to jump
from third place. See what he can do.
Tell you what, it's a painful pit lane, this one. It's such a tough drive through this pit lane because you just can see drivers pulling away and pulling away. It's really painful being the first car to pit on this layout because you just see cars flying off in the distance and you can just see yourself going further and further and further back down the field. But when you're the last to pit, you're enjoying it when everyone else is pitting because you just see yourself moving up the timing sheets. Martin in.
Yes, indeed. So our first two drivers to take their last couple of pit stops, or rather, next two, I should say, because Dean Mole was the first.
So we've had Dean Mole, Rory Boyd, and also Lyndon Swabby all in for their final stops, as well as Phil Otto. So got a few guys in to make their final pit stop. But this is going to make it a bit of a tough decision. Nowak's starting to have a little bit of trouble with traffic, so we'll see if Nowak might think about coming in to get himself out of that. And Norton as well will need to think about what to do now. I'm hoping he doesn't get jumped with an undercut. There is a potential for an undercut with the way the tyres work in these cars. You can get a little bit of an undercut. We've already seen that undercuts worked once against Norton. See if it happens again.
Yes, indeed. Well, Nowak is going to stay out once again here. We'll see what Norton does if he decides to respond to L'Herbier. Nope,
Just want to point out that Herbier actually took tyres that stop.
I see.
So he's decided he doesn't want to risk it with old tyres at all. He's gone tyres and tyres. So interesting strategy. Some guys will do that, and other guys will just splash and dash and take no tyres.
Well, L'Herbier will definitely have comfort in that car in his final stint. But the drivers he'll be battling with likely to be the likes of Cardamone and Burns, I think, at this stage. Because I don't know what Norton can do from here to slip backwards. He seems pretty comfortable in second position right now.
Yeah, don't think those top two are going to change, and it's probably more than likely this race is Nowak's to lose as well with the pace that he's had over the past hour and a half or so. So it'll be interesting to see what may possibly happen in the pit stop and whether Nowak possibly does something out of the ordinary in the pit stop.
Well, you'd think Norton, to get some track position, will go no tyres now. He'll probably decide he's going to risk it and take no tyres and try and get himself some track position. He might be able to jump Nowak depending on what Nowak does. Nowak probably in a position where he can do whatever he likes. It doesn't really matter.
On Hubier's into the wall.
Oh,
On the
yeah,
exit of
goodness.
Boschemont, that's
Wow,
a big moment.
okay. Yeah, that's big, very big. And right out of the pits on fresh tyres as well. L'Herbier will be absolutely kicking himself there. Just got a little bit loose on the exit of Blanchimont, and he tried to recover. Big hit.
That changes things in this race, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah, and L'Herbier right back into the pits to get that that spare car, I would presume.
Let's open things up at the front now, and there's a real fight on it for the podium. It's really opened up the podium. We've got a few cars that are in contention now.
Yeah, we certainly have. Cardamone, Burns, and I would think Northway with an outside shot.
Yes, this race has just gone totally upside down.
Well, we shall see how things eventuate, because these guys are all staying out of the pits. But one of them is going to have to blink first.
Got Trevor Mack back in the pits as well. John King also coming in to make his final stop with under 45 minutes to go. Around about 20 laps of racing left, so we're coming into the final stages very, very quickly.
Yeah, we certainly are. Now, King, he was fighting with Slissans and Bowen, the likes of those people, so This stop could make all the difference for him as well.
Well, he really wants to come out ahead of Jason Martin, which is probably the main car that he was battling with. Jason Martin actually coming under pressure from Dean Mole. These guys are both not long out of the pits. Mole's tyres will be up to temp. Both of these guys playing the alternate strategy with no tyre first stop.
Oh, and Martin just running a little wide through Pouon as well. The back end just stepping out slightly. So Jason Martin, as you said, Jay, very much under pressure right now. Dean Mole, meanwhile, he's setting 2-minute 19s. Actually dipped into the 2-minute 18s coming out of the pits. So Mole with some very good consistent pace in that Mercedes. Martin, though, he still needs a bit of time to get back into his groove after spending so long on the same set of tyres. Seems like he actually has got a bit of an advantage over Mole in that section of the track. You can see him really testing the limits of the brakes right there, a very narrow entry to the bus stop.
That lap
And
there.
John King is out.
Yeah, King, Martin and Mole, I think they're all going to be pretty close together. King just gets up to speed. Martin and Mole already coming across the start line. They're going to come out pretty close to King. They're going to be 3 cars pretty close together because it's going to take a little bit for King to get up to speed as well. His tyres won't be up to temp, up to pressure. It's going to be very, very close.
Yeah, certainly. And remember, King has got the entire Kemmel straight with less straight line speed thanks to the pit exit. So if he wants to try and stay well ahead of Mole and Martin, he's going to have to get up to pace very quickly. But it seems like that is looking less and less possible, corner by corner. And Mole right on the back of Martin now. You could see he got a major run up the Kemmel straight. Now through the middle sector, Martin's going to have to try and use that Audi to his advantage. Try and stay ahead as much as he possibly can. John King actually doing very well to maintain the gap to these guys after his exit.
Northway in the pits as well. So Northway will probably come out just ahead of these guys too. So Northway is the one that's probably been the big winner out of his pit stop strategy. We saw him battling with these 3 cars earlier in the race. He's now going to find himself a fair way ahead by the looks of things.
Yeah, certainly. He's still getting that fuel pumped in. And he's actually revving the engine in the pits, so he hasn't taken tyres.
Yeah, no tyres in the second stop. Interesting.
Very interesting. Well, that's definitely put him far ahead of the drivers that he was battling before. Coming out just ahead of James Stacey on track, and Christopher Norton behind him as well.
So Northway's rejoined in 11th position, just ahead of James Stacey, who is yet to make his second pit stop. James Robbie also yet to make his second stop. He's the first car 1 lap down. Just up the road, Joseph Cardamone has come in the pits though.
Right, so this is gonna really shake things up for the podium, because it is for the most part Cardamone versus Burns, possibly Northway as well with that tyre-free pit stop. So what will Cardamone decide to do? Will he go for tyres? Will he forego tyres? Try and maintain that track position.
Jason Martin's under pressure from Mole now.
Oh, he certainly is. They were like this at this point last lap. And it's at this point where Mole seems to lose out, because Martin, have a look there. He's just able to hook up the throttle nicely through Brazil. And oh no, that's not going to help him. He had to get out of the throttle there to avoid getting into the wall. So that's ruined any advantage that he would have gotten. Mole right on the back of him now, using every inch of the curb that he possibly can to try and get a leg up, but it just seems that Martin is able to hook up the throttle just a little bit more cleanly through these flowing turns. And that, I think, is where one of the big advantages of the Audi lies. The Mercedes is good at those stop-start turns. When it comes to flowing turns...
Sorry, Reese. Nowak
yes.
from the lead is in the pits.
Right, okay, so there we go. This, for the lead, could get interesting because Norton is going to go by him here. So Norton will have seen that. Now he'll be thinking about how to respond.
So it'll be interesting to see if he does take tyres or not, that being Nowak. John King also tucked in behind Rory Boyd. Boyd yet to make his second stop. This is for position as well. So we've got two battles, 13th, 14th, 15th and 16th out there at the moment.
Yes, indeed. And have a look at how aggressive King was on the brakes. Almost running wide, but going for that late apex. Now looking in the background of that image to Martin and Mole. Mole has a chance here to get by on the Kemmel Straight. If only he can hook it up through here. I noticed a little bit of a lift from Jason Martin. You see Mole has a tiny bit of a run. I don't think it's going to be enough. It's going to be a repeat of last lap and the lap before. They're just close enough, but not quite close enough for Mole to make a pass.
Nowak is away, by the way.
No tyres for Nowak as well. 28-second stop.
So that means if Christopher Norton wants any chance of trying to stay with him for this victory, he's going to have to forego tyres as well.
So when does Norton pit is the real question now. Does he go as long as he can to try and get a bit of a gap while he's got clean air?
I'd say so. I mean, I don't really see any advantage to pitting earlier.
Yeah.
Especially while Nowak's going to have a bigger dose of fuel in the tank as well. So he's going to be a little bit heavier. Take him a look at maybe a lap or two to get his tyres back up to temp as well. So, yeah, interesting. Stays out. King has got past Boyd, and Boyd now coming under pressure from Martin. And Martin still under pressure from Mole.
Yes, indeed. And Boyd, I would expect to come into the pits very, very soon. Running all the way off the AstroTurf at Blanchimont once again. Now, will he go in this time? It looks like he will, and that is going to unleash Martin and Mole once again. So Rory Boyd. Oh yeah, actually, this is well and truly on. But oh, have a look at that, Dean Mole lifting off.
I wonder if Mole isn't quite safe on fuel and is just happy tucked in behind for now to save a dash of fuel to get himself to the magical number that he needs.
That's entirely possible. Either that, or if he's genuinely interested in making a move, it's not optimal to make one at La Source because then you have to defend all the way down the straight. Moment of truth is here. If Mole elects to stay behind Martin here, he's going to stay in the slipstream. And yeah, he's lifting off.
Interesting.
Yeah, well and truly fuel saving. Martin once again hooking up the throttle beautifully through those sweepers.
King's managed to pull away from these guys a little bit too, so Martin now out of the draft of King, and we'll have Mole for company for the next little while now.
Yeah, John King doing very well since he jumped in for his stop. His lap times looking pretty nice around the 218, 219 area, so he should be pretty safe, I would imagine.
Stay is out for another lap.
So yeah, he is leaving that as long as he possibly can.
Not a huge surprise though. I think he'll go as long as he possibly can. His lap time last lap by was only 0.02 of a second off his fastest lap of the race. So Norton's got some good pace at the moment as his fuel load has come down. Get a comparison to Nowak when Nowak crosses the line to complete his first flying lap. James Stacey's also come into the pits and has retired from the race, sorry.
That's all right, no worries. That's a bit of a shame there for James Stacey. When we last looked at him, it didn't seem like he had much damage on the car, but it looks like, wow, the damage has actually had increased from the last time we saw it. So obviously he had a pretty major off.
Dean Moll still not wanting to get past. He's just happy tucked in behind Jason Martin. Very surprised by this.
James Stacey, I am sad to report, had a major crash at the top of the hill that we unfortunately missed, and that was a fair whack of the wall when he started his lap 46, so that's what put him out of the race.
Doesn't look like I'm going to be able to pick it up. See if I can. So we tick down to 31 minutes to go, just under 31 minutes to go. It's been an enthralling race. There's been so many different things go on, and the strategy has just been really interesting. I'm surprised how many drivers have done things differently to everyone else. It's been good to see.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, in terms of out-and-out on-track action, you know, this race has had an okay amount, but of course, balls to the wall on-track action is not something that, you know, it's definitely very much of a too much of a good thing situation. If you get it all through a 2.4 hour race, then you have no time to dedicate to the strategy. So I think this is definitely the thinking person's race, this one.
I think if we had too much balls to the wall action in a 2.4 hour race with this many cars, we might not have too many cars left.
No,
that was
that's a very good point.
Massive incident for Stacey, though. That was huge.
Yes, indeed.
Come back live.
I do just want to point out, Norton's actually catching a bit of lap traffic here, so it wouldn't be a silly thing for him to come into the pits, possibly on this lap or the next lap or so.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Who's that in front of him? That's Trevor Mack and Robert Northway. So there's a possibility that he could get held up here. Both of these cars in front of him, Mercedes and him and Audi, he's definitely stronger in this middle sector of the circuit, so he'll want as much of an advantage as he can get, but Mack just letting him go. Good stuff from him. Northway, I don't think will be as accommodating. He's got his own possible top 10, maybe even top 5 result to think about here.
And he's actually quicker than Cardamone, who's the next car ahead of him as well, so yeah, this is going to be interesting.
I think if Norton would have hit any time, it would be now. Don't get tangled up with Northway.
Well, the pace is evened out as well between Norton and Nowak. So Nowak last lap was only 0.2 slower than Norton, and Norton will probably be slower again this lap with this traffic. So it may not be a bad idea to jump into the pits. He's not doing that though. He's going to try and keep going on and go as long as he can. Big flash of the headlights to Northway. He'll get it done into turn 1. Northway does make it a little bit easier.
Yes, indeed. Very wide, actually, from Northway. Quite expect him to go that wide.
Gap between Norton and Nowak is 58 seconds, so we need to keep an eye on that. We know that the time stopped will probably be around about 25 to 28 seconds for Norton. Add in the amount of time that you lose in the pit lane, which is around about 35 to 40 seconds, just due to the fact that you're not going as fast. It's going to be pretty close. I think Nowak will have the advantage, but it's going to be a lot closer than we might have expected.
Yeah, I think so too. Nowak will definitely have the advantage in terms of sheer momentum, but I don't know. Norton may very well have a good chance at snatching this race win away.
Bearing in mind, Nowak's going to be on slightly quicker tyres, as he's actually just done a 16.8. So 2/10 quicker than Norton's last lap, so he's definitely on a charge.
Fastest car on track was Josh Nowak, so he is well and truly on a charge. Dean Mole still tucked up in behind Jason Martin. The timing screen's flashing at me, showing that these two are close, and they're just staying at this exact gap every lap. And I'm surprised that Mole hasn't made this move.
I think the earlier speculation we had might be true, and he might not be okay on fuel. It's probably in his best interest to stay behind Martin for as long as he can.
Yeah, I think you're probably right in that aspect, as he's actually been behind for so long, to the point where any sort of move has probably been eradicated.
One thing I've also noticed too is that Martin has closed back up to King. That gap was out to 2.4 seconds. It's now back down to 1.8. So Martin starting to close that gap back into John King ahead once again.
Yeah. I don't really know what to make of that, as King somehow pushed through the optimum period for the tyres. Or is he just driving conservatively to the end?
Well, he took tyres in his pit stop 6 laps ago, so I'm not sure, unless the tyres have taken a little bit to get back up to temp, or he maybe has overpressured them a little bit and had to do it. Yeah, or fuel. He's maybe just slightly short on fuel. We'll see. Lap time this time, 17.7, a 17.6 and a 17... Sorry, and an 18.0 for these three, so... fairly close lap time still between King and Martin, but Martin with a slight advantage.
I think Dean Mole might be very comfortable there behind Martin.
One car that they've got to be careful of, though, the 027 of Le Herbier, is starting to close up on these guys, as well as he makes his way back through the field after his incident coming out of the pits. Now only 4 seconds behind Mole, but lapping a full second a lap quicker than Mole, so he'll be trying to get himself back into the top 10. As soon as he gets to Mole, he can pass 1, 2, 3 to get himself back in the top 10 pretty quickly.
Yeah, he certainly could, and that might make things a bit dramatic between Mole and Martin as well, to have a wild Vincent Lervier stuck right in the midst of their little tandem driving that they're doing at the moment.
2 hours down, 24 minutes to go.
So the clock is very slowly ticking. I think that might be round about 11, 12 laps worth of driving to go.
Yeah, my timing's saying 11 laps. So Norton decides to go on for another one. Got clear air, and he's just done his fastest lap of the race, a 16.2.
Goodness me. So Norton actually... Might he not take tyres in this last pit stop and just go for a complete splash and dash?
He has to not take tyres. He's got no option.
Yeah.
He has to go all out, no tyre stop. He's trying to get as much of a gap between...
Oh, Mole's on the fence out of Blanchmont.
Oh, no! What?
Oh, no.
Oh, goodness me. How did that go wrong for him? Oh, yeah. He took too much curb on the inside, and that unsettled the car.
seen that a few times already today, haven't we?
Yeah, we certainly have.
Inside curb there in the chicane. We've seen it a few times. And he almost saved it too. That was the most dramatic part, and then just slowly into the fence. It was a slow old hit in the end, and hopefully the car isn't too badly damaged. The secondary hit might be the worst one, but it's back out there and going again. Disappointing thing for him is he's lost that draft that he was needing.
Yeah, and he's lost the potential for a fantastic position to finish off his race.
Hopefully the car's not too badly damaged. Daniel Stevens is the car behind, around about 20 seconds back, so he's got a bit of an advantage at the moment in that the next car behind is a fair way back. Another gap that is growing is Josh Nowak to Christopher Norton, now 59.4 seconds. So slowly creeping out. It may be at a minute before Norton comes into the pits.
Well, Norton's doing everything he needs to right now to try and get as much of a gap between himself and Nowak as possible. Oh, a little bit of oversteer at the exit of Blanchimont for Norton. His tyres will definitely be feeling it now. He stays out for one more lap.
10 laps to go. Not long left as we got Robert Northway back in the pits. What's happened? Yeah, Northway's been disqualified.
Oh, no. Yeah, he must have hit the incident limit.
Alexander Sheridan also in the pits. So unfortunate for Northway. He was doing a great job, but it looks like he is race done because he has disappeared from the circuit altogether.
So that now elevates Martin into a top 10 and John King into P9.
Depending on where Sheridan comes out, they could even go even higher because Sheridan is just stopped. If Sheridan takes tyres, he's going to drop all the way behind. So Sheridan away, no tyres, but that's going to bring King, Martin and Leherbier right up onto him come the end of this race. We're going to see a real intense battle for these last few spots in the top 10.
Yeah, certainly. I'm really looking forward to seeing how this turns out.
So Sheridan only a 17.8 second stop. Definitely no tyres. And King, we know, took tyres. He was a 55 second stop. Norton has got that gap at 59.7 seconds. So it is pretty much a minute. We're going to see some real close battles in this final 15-20 minutes. It's going to be intense.
Yeah, looking for a real spicy end to this race.
Sheridan's got 9 seconds over King, but we know that old tyres at this point, it's probably going to be 1 to 2 seconds a lap. 9 laps to go. We're going to see Sheridan, King, Martin and Leherbier all together with probably 2 or 3 laps to go.
So a resurrection of the battling that we saw in the opening laps of the race.
Basically like we just skipped the bit. Basically like we've skipped the middle section of the race and just had to start the finish exactly as it was.
Yeah.
Got Adam McLeod also in the pits making his final stop. A little bit of damage to his car. He's just hit the pit wall as well.
Oh.
Lucky he's coming in to get some damage fixed because that car looks a little bit second hand.
And Christopher Norton in.
Rightio.
So this will be the telling point.
And the gap at that point, 59.3 seconds.
Oh boy. So what can Nowak do from here? Will he be able to get by? Will there be a legitimate battle for the win in these final laps?
See what Dane Burns does as well. He's yet to make his final stop too, so he's actually in this as well, depending on what he does. Still got, what, 5 cars yet to make their final stop. That includes Christopher Norton, so we'll see as Norton comes up to reach his pit box. Burns also in the pits for his final stop. Nowak just about to come up to the bus stop. Norton just coming up to his pit box to stop now.
This is critical, very critical.
This is going to be very close.
Yeah, Norton, one of the last pit bays. Getting a little bit of damage repaired on his car. Nowak into La Source.
Norton needs to get it going. He needs to get going. I think
He's
Noah's
gone.
got him.
No time needed to be spent on the pit limiter for Norton.
It's going to be very
This is
close.
going to be tight. This is going to be intense.
Oh, Norton might have cut. He was very close to cutting. Oh, Nowak with just too much momentum. And I somehow get the feeling, watching Norton's car, he might have gone out of bounds exiting the pits through that left-hander.
Fingers crossed he hasn't. It'll mean that we'll have a grandstand finish because he is still in the draft. The fact that he's in the draft is what could change this race.
Yes, indeed. So remember, did Nowak take tyres in his previous stop?
No.
Yes. Didn't he?
No, he only 28-second stop, so he was a fuel-only stop.
All right, so both of these guys running on old-ish tyres.
And Norton pitted a little bit earlier as well, so Norton's probably on slightly older tyres.
Nowak making his way past Mole there. And Norton straight on the headlight flash button. Letting Mole know, please let me through. This is my chance. Oh, that would really hurt though. Mole lets him go, but still Norton has lost a little bit more time than he would probably have wanted.
Big advantage though, he would have got double draft for a moment there though, so he got the draft from Mole and then straight away he'd be back into the draft of Nowak. Would have helped him a tiny little bit, but the tyre's not quite back up to pressure. We'll see if he jumps into the pits, whether he's got a penalty or not. We'll know straight away if the lap time registers on the board as an official lap time.
Okay,
And it
so
does,
no
it's
penalty.
fine, no penalty. So we can fight on. We've got 8
Well,
laps of racing to go. This is going to be intense.
I tell you what, Norton got away with that by the skin of his teeth. That would have been a few pixels worth of space.
Martin under pressure.
Yes, indeed. And that's from Vincent L'Herbier, who is trying to make a recovery drive of his own. After running on the top 3 for much of the race, L'Herbier with that big crash out of Blanchimont. He's going to try and make good on this and get into the top 10 by the end. You can see how aggressive he is on the brakes and on the front end, but Martin gets it back from the apex to the exit.
Interesting thing is L'Herbier was actually the fastest car on track last lap out of every single car in the field. This 027 car, the fastest car.
Wow. So he's definitely determined to try and make good on a race that could have gone much better for him.
There's actually a chance of getting up to 8th here with only 7.5 laps to go. He really could get right up there that high. The pace that he's got, if he can get past Martin, it won't take him long to get to the back of King. And Sheridan with old tyres, it won't take him long to get to Sheridan, let alone pass him. So if he can get past Martin as soon as he's done that, I think he's a real chance of getting up to P8.
We'll see what happens there then. Vincent L'Herbier, potential late race charge, but the battle between the top 2 is staying a bit stagnant, I think, at the moment.
L'Herbier
Martin's
through.
not been able to make any inroads.
Martin's now back to 11th position. L'Herbier through into 10th. Gap between Sheridan and King's about 8 seconds. It was 9 after the pit stop, so not a huge amount of time gained. L'Herbier is still the fastest car out on track, even with that move.
We'll see how long it takes for him to get up to the back of John King at this rate, because King with an 18.0, 17.191 for L'Herbier. That's 8 tenths. Fantastic pace at the moment from him.
Nowak stretched the gap out to 1.6, pulled 7/10 of a second that lap on Norton. So starting to stretch the legs of Norton a little bit. Norton almost out of draft range. He'll be just getting some draft now, but if he lets Nowak go any further up the road, that will be day done because the draft will be gone. And it's stretching out now. It's out to 1.9 seconds. So I think it might be almost race done for Christopher Norton. He put up a gallant fight. Somehow brought himself back into contention, but I don't know if it's going to be enough.
It was certainly worth a try, I suppose.
We had to do something to mix up the strategy, especially after that first pit stop, which obviously didn't go to plan with how long it was. Had to do something to try and bring himself back into it, and he did a good job of doing that, but might be too little, too late, unfortunately. But first two cars separated by 2 seconds. If you say you're going to have that at the start of a 2.5 hour race, you're going to be pretty happy with that.
Yeah, for certain. That's fantastic to see. And the fact that the strategy fight has gone on for the whole race. There hasn't been any real lull periods where we've been wondering who's going to do what. It's been very much drivers surprising us with their strategy decisions, and it's been super cool seeing what possibilities have sprung forth.
Sheridan this lap's done a 28.4, 27.5, sorry, an 18.4, 28.4, that'd be slow. An 18.4, an 18.5 for King, an 17.5 for King, 17.1 for L'Herbier, and 17.8 for Martin. So 1.3 seconds difference between the fastest and the slowest in this 4-car battle for 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th. This is not done yet. I think we're going to see a bit of a grandstand finish between these 4 cars.
Yeah, certainly. They're drawing closer and closer lap by lap.
Gap between Sheridan and King is now under 7 seconds as well, so it's pretty crucial with only 6 laps to go. You really need to get a big chunk of time each lap does King to Sheridan, but he's getting a second a lap, and that will start to extend as those tyres go off for Sheridan even more, because Sheridan, of course, did not take tyres at his last stop.
No, certainly didn't. Vincent L'Herbier, on the other hand, you can see how much he has taken out of King on this lap alone. Nearly at the point where he can start looking for a move.
Oh, look at the amount of ground he made under brakes there too. He just looks so much stronger and so much more controlled in his car from King.
That right there is what I was talking about with that advantage that he has. He's just able to use so much more of the front tires, work the wheels so much harder into the corners. King resolutely taking care of his machinery, but L'Herbier is looking for positions 100%, right up to his team manager on the back, coming through Blanchimont, and King looks like very intentionally letting L'Herbier go.
So up into 9th in his redemption drive after unfortunately finding himself in the wall coming out after his second pit stop. We will have 5 laps to go in this race. The gap first to second is out to 2.1 seconds. So you'd almost think Norton is not in draft range at that point.
No, certainly not. He's definitely well out of it. And I think barring the mistake from Nowak, that may be the last Christopher Norton sees of a chance to take victory here, because Nowak took another 2/10, almost 3/10 out of him on that last lap.
I must say, how much has Nowak improved throughout this year? We saw at the start of the season, sort of was a mid-pack runner and sort of fought for top 5s, and all of a sudden he's just matured such a great deal and working his way forward and more each race, to the point where I've seen him race in the main split of V8 Scops. He's improved that much this year.
Yeah, certainly. I think that's a really good point to make. Nowak, I remember him first coming onto my radar in the Australian Endurance Championship as a member of Swift Racing, and since he's joined up with Kinetic, and I think he's really come to the fore, I suppose, excellent run of results up to this point, and I think competing in the majors has really given him a chance to work on his overall skill. Because you got to remember, these races in the majors, there isn't a single race that has the same kind of car track combo. The drivers are tested in all aspects of their racing ability, and for Nowak to have achieved the run of results that he has so far, and looking to take home a victory here at Spa, touch wood, don't want a commentator's curse you here, Josh. Certainly, it looks like that improvement has been massive.
All you have to do is look at his results. He's just been so consistent throughout this championship as it's gone on too. Like, first race, when we had the 2.4, did a good job. He just made sure he got a solid result. Wasn't necessarily the fastest car, but it was just nice and consistent. We went to Daytona for the NASCAR race at Daytona. He knew that wasn't going to be one of his strong points, but again, just was nice and consistent. Made sure he got a good result, got good points. And then as we've come on later on in the season, he's just got better and stronger as we've moved on. It's just been really, really consistent in his performance throughout this season.
He certainly has, but we can't discount the other good performers in this championship as well. Christopher Norton with his performance today. You know, I've known of Christopher for quite a while, and he's been a fantastic driver as long as I've known him, and he's continuing to show that today. Really in with a chance of taking victory today, which speaks volumes. And people like Dwayne Burns, Joseph Cardamone, and John King coming to the fore in this series as well really shows the depth of talent that drivers have that often doesn't have a chance to surface until a series like this comes around. Jason Martin as well. I've been very pleasantly surprised by his performances in this series so far.
I've been very impressed with Jason's performance on the roadside. He's very, very honest in saying that he's useless as a road driver, but I must say he's done an absolutely outstanding job in this championship on the road stuff, and then his performances on the oval has been phenomenal. So it's great to see him do such a good job in both aspects, especially when he's very, very open and honest about his apparent lack of talent on the roadside. But I must say, well, you ask him and he will say that he's useless. You ask him and he will use those exact words. But tonight, in races like this, he's shown how good he really is.
Yeah, certainly. And looking at him versus John King, it seems as though that gap has closed somewhat over the last few laps. Martin actually had King by a 10th over that last lap, so we could see a bit of a fight ensue in the last couple of laps of this race. But we aren't that far away from white flag, are we?
No, we're not. We're just going to go back to an incident with Lyndon Swabby. Swabby was closing up very, very quickly to the back of Daniel Stevens, but at the chicane, he just got it all messed up. Swabby actually is the fastest car out on track at the moment in the number 100 car, so we'll see him try and get himself back up through the field. But yeah, just a massive moment coming out of the chicane. He did a great job to regather it. He's going to have to do this all again.
Certainly. Daniel Stevens is not making it too difficult for Swaby at the moment. Not the optimum line through the chicane for Stevens. Oh, and there we go. Just running wide through La Source. Swaby's going to have a go here. I don't know how intentional that was.
Daniel Stevens has been another one that's been on the improve. Think back to the start of the season. He was well and truly a backmarker, and he's moved his way up to a really solid mid-pack runner throughout this season. I wouldn't be surprised come up to the end of the season when we get to likes of Bathurst and races like that, where we could see him even further up, maybe even fighting for top 10s.
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to be keeping a lookout for Daniel Stevens over the next few rounds in the championship. See where he takes himself.
King's under pressure from Martin now.
Oh, he is, definitely. Coming up through this section of the lap. Martin definitely in the draft range now. We'll see him close up just a bit through this section. Very nice performer through Blanchimont. Here's Martin in that Audi. Look at how much he closes up under brakes, and these guys have Adam McLeod for company too.
2 laps to go for these guys.
Yes, indeed, and McLeod is going to pull over and let these guys by. Let them continue on with their fight, and King running a little wide in La Source. Martin not able to make any of that work though.
Nowak's crossed the line to start what will be his final lap of the race as well. So not long to go in this one. Leherbier 2 seconds a lap quicker than Sheridan, and he might get him by the end of this race as well. Only 2 seconds separating those guys. Yeah, Martin, what a run.
Goodness me, have a look at him. Oh, he's not going for the move.
No, he's going to wait.
Ah, now that right there, a very intentional ploy. He is not going to waste a maneuver at this point. He's much better off doing it later on in the lap where King can't come back at him. But I'll tell you what, he must be really struggling not to throw it up the inside through this section. You can see particularly on entry how much quicker Martin is than King through this section.
Norton's struggling. Is Norton short on fuel? Norton's dropped 6 seconds now from Nowak. He's dropped 4 seconds on this lap alone. Norton is in trouble. Will he make it home?
Tell you what, it'd be absolute heartbreak for him if he ran out of fuel on the last lap here. His performance has been absolutely fantastic in this race, starting from pole, leading for the entire first stint. I think he deserves a very strong second after the effort he's put in.
100% agree. He's been really, really solid throughout the race. Here comes Jason Martin. Will he be able to get it done this time into the bus stop? He might be able to. He's close enough. No, he's got out of it. Have a look, Leherbier is right behind Sheridan too as they come up to start. Get the white flag this time. But focus back to Josh Nowak as he comes up to finish his race.
Yes, indeed. What a fantastic performance. And Nowak actually getting out of the throttle on the run up to the chicane. Just going to coast his way across the line here. A fantastic victory for Josh Nowak in this round of the Majors Series International Division. Incredible performance. Christopher Norton too, big shout out. Fantastic race from him as well. I tell you what, not quite over yet, but I think Dwayne Burns wasn't quite expecting a third place here.
Sheridan's been passed by Leherbier, so Leherbier back up into 8th. Good job from him. Martin's not able to get past King. Yeah, you're right. Burns is surprised in this result. I don't think he would have expected or thought he had the pace to get a P3, especially starting in 8th. He's done a very, very good job.
He certainly has. This battle may very soon become triple between Sheridan, King and Martin if they continue on the way they have. I tell you what, Martin, as I predicted, he is going to try and go for the move as late as he can. But King, yeah, running wide in Pouon. This is going to let Martin through, and King had to get out of the throttle. So Martin right on through. King just getting caught in the marbles there. And that rumble strip at the exit of Pouon, it's got the AstroTurf beyond it, but it's a huge bump. It's very elevated relative to the tarmac. So King was right to get out of the throttle there. Unfortunate for him, losing out to Jason Martin at the last opportunity. But Martin's going to come through to finish P10
Shout out to Bram Rainers. He spun on
Yeah.
lap 1. He's got himself
What?
all the way back up to 6. What a drive. Well done.
Managed to get himself back up to where he started. A fantastic performance from Bram.
That's incredible.
Wow.
In 7th. And L'Herbier back into 8th. That's 2 phenomenal drives from those guys, Rainers and L'Herbier. That's fantastic.
For sure. Excellent stuff. Oh, and Bram sending someone sky high right at the end.
Wow, what a night. What a fantastic event that was.
Yeah, certainly. Brilliant stuff. Well, the majors, international division, the Spa 2.4 results are as follows. Josh Nowak winning the race from 4th, with Christopher Norton in 2nd. Dwayne Burns from 8th to 3rd. Great performance. Joseph Cardamone coming home in 4th, with Andres Slisans running a quiet race to finish in 5th position. Bram Reniers with a fantastic recovery drive. Went all the way to the back on lap 1, but he finishes where he started in the end. Shane Bowen coming home in 7th, with Vincent L'Herbier recovering to 8th. Alexander Sheridan in 9th from 16th, and Jason Martin snatching a top 10 on the last lap.
11th position is John King, the last car on the lead lap. Then Lyndon Swabby, who started from the pit, started in last position, passed over half the field to finish in 12th, 1 lap down. Daniel Stevens in 13th position, with Daniel Atchison and James Robbie, the next 2 cars, 14th and 15th. Dean Mole, unfortunate end to his race. He does finish the race, though, in the end, in 16th position with a late pit stop with 3 laps to go. Trevor Mack in 17th. Phil Otto in 18th. They changed positions on the last lap as well. Rory Boyd in 19th position, and rounding out the top 20 is Adam McLeod. Over the page to our DNFs to Northway, Stacey, Fox, Gardner and Trozen.
Well, a very interesting one indeed. And for our first interview of the night, we have Mr. Josh Nowak, your race winner here. Josh, that was a really good drive from you. And wow, congratulations. How'd you do it, especially in the middle stint?
Oh, thanks, Reese. I have no idea. I'm super sweaty from all that. That middle stint was just insane. I just had to put in the laps and just make sure I was consistent, didn't get the off tracks, and somehow it paid off even with a minor fuel miscalculation.
Yeah, I'm just reading the InSim text chat now. Apparently you put in 12 liters too much.
Yeah, just we had a few more laps to go, I thought, but driving and calculating fuel and stuff is pretty difficult to do, and thankfully Jake helped out a little bit.
Certainly. Well, after that result, you certainly would be happy with the extent to your championship lead. And just touching on Jake Fox, we noticed that he went back out a few times during the race. Was that to help you out with your strategy?
No, Jake, I just think he was trying to see if the car was better to drive, and then he realized that it wasn't, and he just didn't want to risk ruining somebody else's race. It was just trying to get ahead of all the guys that would have misfortunes later on, but unfortunately for him, it didn't pay off.
Well, it will certainly be an interesting one for Jake. He's going to have to give up second in the pro standings to Christopher Norton after this race. So the 1-2 in the championship for Kinetic is no more for now, but coming into the next few rounds of the season, obviously you guys definitely do have the pace. So how is that going to go for you?
Well, with the next 2 rounds being Pocono and then Knoxville, I'm not too confident on ovals personally. So I'm kind of keen to get those ones out of the way as soon as possible and go back to the road side of things. But hopefully Kinetic can, they're really good guys. They can teach me how to be a decent-ish oval racer, and we can get a solid top 10 and just keep a points gap to Chris.
Well, we'll see how that goes for you guys. Unfamiliar territory for you, Josh, in the next 2 rounds of the season. But before we let you go, who would you like to thank?
I would like to thank the guys at Kinetic, Workiva, their sponsor, Eddie, who kept me pretty calm and collected in that middle stint there. And I would like to congrats Chris and Dwayne on their fantastic podium. And you guys, thanks for a great broadcast.
Thank you very much, Josh. We'll be talking to you very, very soon after Pocono. So that was Josh Nowak, your race winner. Bringing into the commentary box our second place finisher, Christopher Norton. And Chris, that was an excellent first stint from you, but you had to settle for second in the end. What happened? I don't believe we have you at the moment, Chris. Unable to hear you, so we'll come back to you in a few seconds, Chris, while you get your microphone issues sorted out. But for now, we'll bring in third place finisher, Dwayne Burns. Dwayne, did you expect that podium?
No, definitely not.
It was certainly an interesting race to start out with. You were embroiled in battles all throughout that first stint, and I noticed that your pace was looking really, really good, especially in the last half of the race.
Yeah, it was pretty tough there at the beginning. I had to dodge someone on the first lap, and that meant I lost a bit of touch, so I couldn't make use of the draft, but just tried to be consistent and managed to catch Joseph and pass him, and then, yeah.
I suppose at the end of the day, the consistency is what paid off for you, because starting from 8th and finishing in 3rd, largely due to the mistakes of other drivers, it's certainly a good result for you to come away with.
Yeah, no, I'm really happy. GT3 is not normally my sort of car, so I knew I'd struggle a little bit here, and it's my first time in the Audi as well, so yeah, I'm stoked.
Well, how stoked are you for the next 2 rounds of the season? Back to ovals on tarmac and dirt. We got Pocono and Knoxville coming up.
I'm looking forward to Pocono. I like the IndyCar and the ovals, but dirt, I've never done a dirt race, so I'm really not too sure how that's going to turn out.
Well, we'll see how your championship looks after Pocono, because you'll definitely get a good boost with this 3rd place finish. Before we let you go, Dwayne, who would you like to thank?
Just like to thank my teammates, Shane and Lyndon, and Mike and the guys who run the series, and you guys for doing the broadcast. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Dwayne. We will see you after Pocono, hopefully. So, to finish off our interviews for tonight, Christopher Norton, do you have us? No, I believe is the answer. It's very unfortunate. We would like to talk to you, Chris, but unfortunately, doesn't seem we're able to get through to you here on our chat. So that may have to be the end of it. Cam, that was an excellent race. Certainly one more for the brain.
Yeah, it definitely was. It was very, very interesting. It was interesting to see the number of mistakes a lot of people made, and just while they weren't simple or large mistakes, they were very strange ones that probably come down to just a minor lack of concentration or something like that. So yeah, a little bit unfortunate for those who did have incidents, but those who actually did recover did very well, such as Vincent and can't remember the other driver's name, sorry. But yes, yeah, it was a very, very interesting race, and yeah, I can not wait to see what Pocono brings.
Yeah, certainly. And Pocono is the next round of the majors. It's going to be on August the 26th, so not far away, 500 miles around Pocono Speedway in the Dallara IR18 IndyCar. Certainly going to be a fantastic one, to be sure. They say it's the oval that drives like a road course. Every corner is different on Pocono. Looking forward to that. But the fun doesn't stop here on V8's Online. We've got broadcasts lined up for you throughout the month. Our next one is tomorrow. the official iRacing V8 Supercar Series. So be sure to jump on for that one. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, subscribe to us on YouTube, and of course, be sure to check out the majors if you're looking for something to race on iRacing. The series is always welcoming of new drivers, and it would be interesting to see how many drivers come in to fight for the Mario Andretti Trophy. Of course, we want to thank you all for watching, and of course, we want to give our best regards to Mission 22, veterans mental health charity that this event is supporting. Be sure to check them out, Mission 22. You've been it's been fantastic, Cam. I'm really struggling to get the words out now. It was definitely a long one, but thank you for joining me.
Yeah, no worries. It's been an interesting race, and we'll see everybody at Pocono and then Knoxville the next round after that.
Yes, indeed. But in the next week, watch out for us on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday. We have been V8s Online. This has been the Majors International Division, the 2.4 hours of Spa. Josh Nowak for Kinetic Racing was your winner. We'll see you next time.